Hi, yeah, so today we're gonna play the victims. Um, if we have to put up more videos on different people that have spoken, hi Christine, then we will go through. Right now, I'm thinking as it's crossed my mind now, as it's fresh now, I'm gonna play some of the videos and stuff like that so we can get the hold on, give me a minute, hold on, let me just line up something because I need some picture. Okay. Let me turn my
a lot of things with my own eyes, and that I know for a fact what happened and what occurred. Like, I'm not just talking from, no knowledge, or like somebody who lived outside of the community or outside of the land. Like, I was
Yeah.
actually there. I knew
Mhm.
the children. I knew him, knew his
Yeah.
children, everything. So
So this you have
I
a
can
a
give like
stronger,
a
yeah, having a stronger working knowledge of events
yes,
that took place
yes,
because you were there, you saw it. So this is not one of those things
yes,
between the two of you and what someone said, and that's what is
exactly.
needed because there are a lot of people who
Never
have
lived up there, never
exactly.
was around him, never knew him, but they have, so much to say, and it's like you don't even know what you're talking about because you were never there, you never knew him, and you weren't even around.
Hmm.
So it's like a lot of people, it's like when they talk, they have no idea what they're talking about because
Yeah.
they were never there, they weren't around him, and they never lived on the land or in the community in Bushwick or Jessup Abba or in Edenton, Georgia on Tamaray.
Hmm.
So
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. So what I want to do is I want to first lay a kind of a foundation for the viewing audience. So because of the multiple transitions that the organization had metamorphosized into, the foundation goes back to the stage of Islam. So under Imam Isa, before we got into the whole nuwaubian thing, I wanted to play a video, and I wanted Sean, if you can pull it up, play a video to kind of give you an idea of how it kind of moved, and then take it from when the organization down in Georgia started taking on the name nuwaubians, and then we'll, if necessary, we'll make commentaries in regards to the video because there may be some things in there that people may want to may want to have explained a little more. But in a nutshell, that was how it transpired, or how it metamorphosized from the 1990s, from upstate and then moving down to Edenton, Georgia. And so within that period, the name changed, the ideology changed, and then within that, there were certain acts that did not change. They only increased, and that was how he treated the people and how he treated the children. So I think that that is something that we're going to go into. But what I wanted to do is, Sean, if you can pull that up, play that video, share your screen, play the video, that'll give people, a chance to get an idea of where this thing, how it came and came to be.
All right, hold on 1 second.
okay.
The following program is rated TVMA. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so I had to play that real quick for the Fair Use Act, and so we don't get strike.
He had a miniature movie theater in his house where he would often play movies for us. We would see, a lot of John Cloud Van. Interesting that I was watching that video on how the land was set up. I visited that land only one time back in 1998 when York had this great celebration called the Savior's Day or whatever, that lasted for a couple of days. My family, we went down to visit the land. I was still a teenager at the time. I think I was about 13 or 14 years old. And what, in comparison to that, Jezza Alba or upstate New York was very similar in a sense that, but it was on a much, much smaller scale. We see like some of the representation, we see some of the things that we see in terms of the Egyptian theme and everything like that. It was a little bit different upstate because the one thing that you saw when you went on a land upstate, there was a mock Indian village sort of presentation right in the entrance of the land. So,
and honest, you while you were, she said some of them can't.
You know, these experiences were done to, these things were done to us. And York being the number one culprit, although he wasn't the only one who was molesting children. Well, there were other adults as well. But so that's the story. So she came back and was telling me this story, and you know, eventually it happened to me. You know, I was invited to his house and everything, and it happened that night. And without going into details, it was just one of those, this just very crazy experience and very crazy feeling, because I remember a few days afterwards, you know, all the sisters that were on the land, they started looking at me different, you know, and I started feeling weird because everybody, it almost as if they knew what had happened to me. Mm-hmm. And this is why one of the reasons, and I'm going to bring up an issue, one of the reasons why I really wanted to come out here and talk and share my stories, mm-hmm. but also to address an issue that I don't think anyone that I've heard of having this or engaging in this conversation surrounding this have really touched on, and that is the issue of accountability, and the fact that there were people on the land who knew what was going on. You know, parents, sisters, and brothers who knew what was going on in that land, and they remained silent. And so I'm addressing those parents now tonight, without, you know, implicating anyone in particular and saying any names or anything like that.
Oh, that's fine.
My reason for coming out here and sharing my story is also to point the fingers at some of the parents that said, you guys need to take accountability for what happened to us children, because through their silence, they inevitably enabled York to do what he did to us. Mm-hmm. There were times where, like, these sisters, they saw us running back and forth. And it wasn't just the girls who were running back and forth in the house. It was the boys as well. You know, he used to treat us all the time. Like I said, he used to invite us in the house. He had a miniature movie theater in his house where he would often play movies for us. We would see, you know, a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and Kung Fu movies, Bruce Lee movies, and so on. And he would treat us with candy and popcorn and all types of stuff. And then we would also be invited in his house for other things as well. I remember I've gotten a tour many times throughout his house. I saw the studio that he had in his house. He had an indoor pool. You know, I've been pretty much all over the house, you know, including the bedroom. Yeah. And but one thing I wanted to say is that there were parents on that land, including my mother and father, because both of them were on the land at the time, who saw these things happening as far. Now, one thing I want to say is that I'm not suggesting that the parents were involved in this stuff in terms of performing any of these acts on the children. But what I am suggesting is that they were clearly aware that something was going on. In addition to that, in addition to their own visual experience in terms of seeing this stuff.
Hi. Hold on. Let me just come back again now. Now, the reason why I played that little bit at the beginning of the video before the victim started talking, because this man, he done loads of different doctrines. You know, I always talk about the doctrines and the doctrines, you know. That clearly was a Muslim doctrine. You can see by the way they were dressed, because I think how the story broke was by a couple victims. Nicole Lopez, one of them, or Nicola Lopez was one of them. There's quite a lot of people that spoke out. Now, the guy was talking about the fact that how stuff happened to him as well. I am going to put up the one. I know everybody's played it, everybody, okay, right? The one where Polite spoke to one of the victims. I think his name is Tyreek, right? So right now, right, they're talking about it together, okay? They talk about what happened, who York was as well. These was the people who lived on the grounds of Tamaray, whatever next place they called it when it was in Muslim phrase or whatever. Right. And this man was under many names, okay? Many names. He changed his name many times. And the fact he was grooming the children underneath, like I said, while the parents was busy doing their stuff, helping out on the grounds, whatever they were doing, he was grooming all the children in different ways. And these people go into great detail. So even if you have heard it like 50, 60 times before, right, we are bringing it up. We are bringing it up to the now because people are still talking about it. This still goes on. Now, Trips yesterday covered the FLDS church yesterday from the history, looking backwards of the history of the church. Now, there's always a history with these people. We know for a fact it was always a history or something with these people. Oh, Lord. There's a history with these people. So I am going to. So I hope you didn't hear that noise, eh? Hi, SL. So we are gonna play so this now is the victims talking what happened in Dr. York's camp while they were there with their parents. And believe me, there is a lot more. There's so much more stories, articles. Oh my gosh, it's just overwhelming. I think that's why I felt ill as well, because when it comes down to this sort of information, you have to really open your ears and eyes to certain stuff, because these cult leaders, they will use whatever tools they got to do, separating children from their parents, which is a key thing. They all do the same. Like I said, it doesn't matter the color, whether they're black, white, or indifferent. They all do the same thing. Hi, SL. Hi, Alexis. And hi, Christine. Now I'm gonna let I'm gonna let them talk, and then you can listen. There's gonna be some sad moments. Just brace yourself for what you have to hear, because there's a lot. Okay.
There were plenty of rumors circulating in the community on the land that York was doing this stuff to these kids, particularly the girls. Many of them, when I years later, after I started talking to some of these parents and asking them, what did you see and what did you think and all of this other stuff, and many of them would say, well, we saw the girls running in the house and we thought something was strange with that, but we didn't really know what was going on. And I call bullshit on that. Yeah. They knew exactly what was going on, because in addition to them seeing it, they were talking about it as well. I remember being as a kid, I used to always sit underneath the table while the sisters used to sit around the table talking and gossiping and stuff like that. And I used to hear what the stuff they used to say. And they were aware that York was doing something to these children, because they used to talk about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And none of them said anything. None of them spoke up, and I find it very crazy how it took so long for somebody to say something. I commend the sister who spoke up and who reached out to authorities and everything like that. But nonetheless, mm-hmm. that same sister was on the land upstate, and she didn't say anything back then. It was only when she was down in Georgia, eventually, even years later, she then spoke up and said something. Again, I commend her for that. But mm-hmm. at the same, on the same token, I say that, she had the responsibility of saying something back then. And perhaps it wouldn't have happened to so many children, wow. because I don't think mm-hmm. it happened to that many at that time. It certainly would have saved Anna from having been molested, and so many other children, because it wouldn't have even taken it that far to Georgia. It would have stopped upstate.
Not even only that, but you have to think about it. It's been going on since the Bushwick days. And if somebody would have spoke up all the way back in the Bushwick days, then it wouldn't have continued on from Bushwick, New York, from it's Ansar Allah community all the way to Jezza all the way to Tamaray. Yeah. Like these parents, when Habiba got pregnant at 15 years old, like, okay, nobody said anything. Y'all didn't see that weird that a minor 15 years old got pregnant by this older man that was like in his 40s. Nobody said anything. They turned a blind eye. It was room workers that was working with them, and they knew that these girls were going into his house, coming back late and everything like that. and nobody said nothing. And then that's the silence continued. The fact that adults were silent, that's what made it continue from the Ansar days all the way to Jesse Abba, all the way to, Tamaray. And I feel like the authorities, Sheriff Sills, should not, when the letter was sent to DFAX in 1998, or probably earlier, and Sheriff Sills, it shouldn't have taken 4 or 5 years later for authorities to investigate. Nobody came on the land on Tamaray to see or check on the kids to make sure they were okay. DFAX did not come. The sheriff did not come. Nobody came to check on any of the kids to make sure they were okay. And then they said, oh, it had to been one of the children to come to them to say, oh yeah, this happened to me, whatever the case. But I'm like, no, when you hear a report about a child, you're supposed to act on it right away. And nothing was acted on right away. So I felt like at the end, Sheriff Sills tried to play like he's a hero, but I'm like, you allowed years to go by for more victims to get abused. And not only the abuse, like I was saying, there's also mental mind games that was being played by this man, But it was like, if you do something he didn't like, it was like you were in trouble, and then he would just ignore you for however long he decided to ignore you until, he wanted to talk to you. And then people have to understand too, it's not like you can easily just leave off the land because we were not in touch with our families, because when you came into the community, a lot of people cut off ties from their family on the outside world. So they did not have access to communicate with their family and, or say, hey, can you come and get me, or whatever the case may be, because there were no ties. And that's what allowed like a lot of people, it's like they didn't have a choice, to like, because they didn't have that many options or anywhere to go. And then, you didn't have a car. A lot of people didn't have an education, and you didn't have money like that either. So it's like all those, and he would tell people, oh, your family don't care about you. Why do you think they didn't come get you? Or they didn't come look for you? They don't care about you, and that's why you're still here. And then, when you're hearing these things, you kind of believe it, like, oh wow, nobody didn't come look for me or come get me. Nobody is trying to come find me. So you start believing what he's telling you, because nobody's looking for you. Nobody acted, upon it to say, let me find out what's going on with these children up here. Let me go find out what's going on with these adults. And it's like you thinking you're in this holy spiritual community when all along it's a cult, because you have no ties to the outside world. It's like you literally, it's like there's, you can't talk to anybody, and people don't understand that. They're like, oh, you have the free will to leave. Yeah, you do. But when you are made to believe that, when you go out into the world, that it's a bad world, and you're something is going to happen to you, and you're scared. You don't have a car, you don't have no money, you don't have an education.
They always use fear so the people don't leave from the place. They always use fear. Does anybody not peep that? And all the cults, they use some type of fear. Oh, when you leave here, this and this is going to happen to you. That and that's going to happen to you. Something really bad is going to happen to you. You're not going to survive out there. Wow.
Where are you going to go? You don't even know your family's. Go ahead.
I think that's something that a lot of people lose touch with. They're not even familiar with the fact, because they always had this thing to say, well, you could leave at any time. But then they're not taking into account
let's put it into context, and I don't mean to cut it off. Let's put it into context. What she's talking about, and particularly, she's talking about it from the perspective of being a child. When you're an adult, yes, you can leave whenever you want. It wasn't a matter. Sure, yes, he manipulated people, and there was a scare tactic being played in terms of why people wanted decided to stay. But nonetheless, they could have left. But as far as the children,
they could have.
Not.
But it's like the thing is, they could have, but you have to understand, a lot of them did not have ties to their families. They didn't have their contact information or anything like that. And it's
that's besides the
Go
point.
ahead.
The point is that they could have gone. I don't care where you go, you could have left. Whether it, either
It's
you.
easier to say that, but when you're in that situation, it's a different story. You know.
I understand that, but at the end of the day, when it comes to your children, and you realize that your children is being abused, me personally, and I don't even have kids, but I have nieces and nephew who I have a very sensitive heart when it comes to kids and the abuse of children. Whenever you realize that your child is in a situation that is not healthy for them, be it their physiological need, emotional need, mental need, or whatever the case may be, and the fact that they are being sexually abused, and you realize that, I don't care where
And
you got to go,
but it's
you
like
got
the
to
thing
go.
is, some of these parents know that their children been sexually abused, but they still choose to follow this man.
And that was the problem. That's the reason
Mhm.
why I'm addressing them in particular
Yeah.
and talking about this idea of accountability and their role in all of this.
Mhm.
Because they knew. And for example, for instance, when I finally told my mom about what happened to me, which was about a year and a half ago, her response to me was that I always suspected it. I said, "What? You always suspected it? And all these years you never said anything? You never done anything?"
Mm.
And I had to, for that moment, I had to refrain from continuing on the conversation because I was so upset and angry with it. I was like, I got to shut up because if I say something, we both going to regret this. So let me just let this go for now or put it on the back burner. I'll have a conversation with you a little bit later. But her response was, I always suspected it, and so many other mothers and parents
But
that
she
have
didn't do
always
anything about
suspected it, but
it.
they didn't do anything. They
Yeah,
remained
exactly.
silent. And because of their silence, they ultimately enabled York to continue to do what he did to these kids,
And
to
then you
us
have
and to
to
other kids.
understand too that he was also blackmailing some of the women. And they were doing the same thing that he was doing as blackmail. So even if they wanted to speak out, he had blackmail against some because they were doing the same things that he was doing.
Yeah. And
Mm.
Yeah, we
so
definitely have that. I
I'm
just want
sorry.
to touch on that point because even when you look at the Ansar cult rebuttal to the slanderers book, one of the things that people are not familiar with when you move into this community, at least for guys like myself, you had to fill out the application. And in this application, you had a lot of personal information. How much sex do you have? Do you have any venereal diseases? How frequent do you have the? How many persons you have sex with? On and on. A lot of personal information is requested that you fill out. Now, in the rebuttal book, individuals who took it upon themselves to be interviewed to explain life within the cult, in the rebuttal book, York takes their personal information and posts it in the book and gives the book away. So people are looking at these individuals. Oh, this person, they say this woman had X amount of abortions. She was sexually abused. She had this venereal disease. The guy had a venereal disease. He was homeless. Except the whole thing was to make them look bad, to undermine what they're saying just off by destroying their character by this rebuttal book, as opposed to addressing the information that they were presenting as life within the organization with him. So I was just saying that to her point that people were being blackmailed, they were labeled as nuts.
Brainwashed. Yeah.
Yeah, they were labeled as nuts in the community. You can't trust this sister. She's crazy. She's too spiritual. Because remember, there were people who were considered spiritual in the community, and if you were too spiritual, you were considered spiritual, which is like a negative connotation to being someone that's spooked out.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
And
the
I mean,
people were saying that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
he also did other things too, where if you, for example, if you disagreed with him on something or you didn't like what he did, he would call you a disagreeable person. You know what I mean? I remember,
Or Black Devil.
yeah, a devil. And I remember my mother. My mother worked in the office where they actually uh, wrote and compiled the books that he sold out here and everything else like that. And she told me one time she got into an argument with him because she disagreed with a topic or subject matter that he wanted to put in the book. She said, she disagreed with that. She did a lot of the research and everything along with several other women. And, he called her a doubting Tom, and then he eventually called her disagreeable, and it was so interesting because immediately after that, I noticed this change in her sort of status in relationship to him. See, York had a hierarchy system on the land upstate, and I'm sure it was the same in Brooklyn and also in Edenton, Georgia. But he had a hierarchy system by which individuals were closer to him based on his favorability of them. So, for instance, or his familiarity
could use
to him.
them for.
Absolutely. So his immediate family, for the most part, would be closest to him, and then those who he favored or who, like she said, they could do for him or whatever the case may be, they would have a certain higher status than other people, and so
That's true.
it was interesting because the houses that we lived in, these trailer homes that we lived in upstate, was even set up that way as well. We had 5 trailer homes all in a row. And then you had his house, his little mini mansion over here on one end. And the houses people were placed in the houses in terms of their sort of quote unquote status in relationship to him. So for example, his main wives or whatever you want to call them, kind of lived in the first house. And then other women who he favored more would live in the second house and so on, along with some of their children.
Can I say something? He had that in Edenton too. He had the house down the hill that was closest to him with his favorite people, and then like up the hill was like
he did
absolutely
people that weren't that close.
So those who were pretty much on the lower end of the totem pole, much was farthest away from his house. And like I said, like it was interesting because immediately after she had that little disagreement with him, we moved from the 3rd house down to the 4th, and then we eventually moved to the 5th house. And I thought, as a child, I didn't understand. I'm like, well, why are we moving down here? And looking back at it, I realized, okay, well, you lost favor, and therefore he pushed you down. And eventually we ended up in the 5th house. It's funny when you think about it, you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And even
that was one of his in trouble, like when you were in trouble when he would ignore you. Yeah, when he would ignore you for however long he wanted to ignore you for. And then he would so play his little mind games,
and everybody would ignore you.
Yes, it was like
you were shunned. You were pretty much shunned. You were shunned and shamed in that sense. And
you're like, well, what is he ignoring me for? I don't know why I'm being ignored. And you're trying to figure it out. But it's like when I was a teenager, and I remember one time walking by, and I think I said hi, and he didn't respond back, and I was like, okay, what is he ignoring me for? And I didn't let it bother me because I'm like, okay, I
you didn't do anything.
You too. Yes, but it's like some people it affected them, but me, I was like, okay, fuck you too. Okay, you ignore me, I'm gonna ignore you too. Like I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what kind of games you have going on. I don't know why I'm being ignored, but I'm not gonna keep. Oh, why are you ignoring me? So I said, okay, we just gonna be ignoring each other. So I didn't say nothing. He didn't say nothing. And then I guess whenever he decided to say, hey, okay, I see you again. And I realized those are mental mind games or mental abuse. And those things can have, it can have a long lasting effect when you get older in your personal relationships and everything like that. And it's like, I didn't understand it when I was younger. But when I think about some of the things he did, I'm like, he was, that was a lot of mental
manipulation,
abuse, emotional abuse. Yes, that he was putting people through. And it was for no reason.
What I wanted to do, bring Sister Ruby on, who authored a book, Soul Sacrifice, and she was also featured in the documentary and the book, Life in the Cult through People magazine with Nicole Lopez. So, Ruby, just feel free to share, because you were upstate. I probably think around the same time that King was.
Okay, because so hi everybody. Everything that I'm hearing everybody say, it strikes a chord. It's like and nobody really understands unless you were there. Like when you try to tell other people about this type of thing, it sounds like a different world. It's a different world. And it like you said, there were games where, and if you were the type where you wanted to be accepted, and everybody wanted to be in his good graces, everybody did, because he was everybody's world, you know, like, because you're in your own little world. You're not, this is the only world that you're living in, and he's like the president or Michael Jackson or whatever, you know, he's the celebrity, he's the one everybody wants to be accepted by, to be seen by, to be recognized by, you know. And like you said, King, is that you when you were shunned, and you said that too, sister, when you were shunned, when he didn't speak to you, same thing happened to me. I think I said I was upstate in, let me see, I think I was 19 when I moved. No, wait. I might have been 19 in Brooklyn. And then by the time I got upstate, I think I might have been 21. I think I might have been turning 21. And then I went to Eatonton for a short period of time, because I left when I was 22. But I joined when I was 17. And I was in Brooklyn for most of the time. And then so I was shunned several times. I got in trouble a lot, you know, for staying in touch with my family. Mostly. And then upstate, or wasn't it Eatonton? I think I said hello to Ishmael, his son, one time, because I knew his wives. I was friends with his wives, and I was there when he had his first son, you know, with his first wife. And so I knew him, you know, I'd seen him, but I got in trouble for that. And I got shunned.
Because you know that he didn't like when one of his wives talked to anybody, because he was very jealous. You literally had to hold your head down and walk.
Sorry, I think I got a frog in my throat. This sounds so much similar to what is going on with the cult present in America, in the Americas right now. He doesn't allow the women to talk to the other men in the cult. He doesn't allow the interaction. He gets very jealous. Wow, it sounds so familiar. I feel that the person of power is put in there, and this, you know, the manipulation is big. It's on a big scale, man. It's just so big. It's just so big. It's unreal. And you know, it just goes to show you that even when you're under somebody, it's like you have to question who you're under. All these movements, the indications is all there. The indications was all there, all in front of their faces, you know. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna let them go on, because it's not even a laughing matter. It's not even a joke. This is dead serious, because no child should be abused at any age at all. And the fact that how he would shun them sometimes, he talk to them 1 minute, then he don't talk to them another minute. It's just, boy.
And just not even, I mean, you know, maybe walking or something, because you're not exactly. It was just it's sad. And then when I hear King say, as a child, it's so hurtful, because, you know, I worked with a lot of the children, and they were like my children. You know how it was. The children are your children. You know, you love them, and you raise them the best you know how. But it hurt to know that there were people so brainwashed that they knew what was happening to their child and may have suspected it, but it just didn't occur to them to go against the master, quote unquote, you know, the teacher, the whatever. And it's
and even his closest wives, you know, Fatima, you know, Kathy, all of them, they was there, and they saw, and nobody said anything. Nobody took up for the children, stood up or said anything. You know, y'all need to be held accountable too.
Yeah, and I was guilt-ridden for years, because one of the children came to me, one of my co-wives' children came to me and told me what happened. And that's the first time I ever heard about it. And I did try to go talk to him, but then I got scared. I was like, I'm up here. I don't know how to leave here by myself. Like, I can't run down a hill in Eatonton and run into the street. I mean, I didn't
it was
know
in the middle of the woods. It was in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, and literally when I got taken up there, I didn't have a driver's license. I know how to drive.
Yeah.
I think they either put blindfold over me or something. They something over my eyes where I couldn't even see where I was going.
And that sounds like kidnapping right there. Kidnapping, trafficking, however, which way you want to change it. Hmm.
So it was just a scary thing, but I was guilt ridden because the thought didn't even occur to me to reach out to cops or the FBI because you're so conditioned to protect him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to protect her because I knew that was wrong. You know, even though I had co-wives who were 14 years old, but in my brainwashed mind, I thought that was, you know, she had her issue because, you know, he always talked about, you know, the Prophet Muhammad and Aisha, how she was 9 years old. And then when a woman gets her issue, you know, no matter how young she is, she's a woman. You know, so you start thinking it's okay, but that wasn't okay either. That wasn't okay either.
Yeah. And you know, it's like he was a pedophile before he even started the community. You know, because he was charged for statutory rape of a felon when he was 19. So I'm like, you started a whole community where you can get access to children and you were already a pedophile. So this just gave him, you know,
and he was molested.
Like a playground.
He was molested. And it's sad because the thought that when I remember during the trial, when the FBI subpoenaed a lot of us to testify, they never used my testimony because I was going to support one of the young girls' testimonies, but they didn't use me. But they brought me out to Brunswick, and I ended up meeting one of the counselors that she was. I guess she testified. I don't know what her testimony supported, but she was a counselor, and she said that pedophiles, she was a counselor that rehabilitated pedophiles, right? So I asked her, I said, you know, I was molested when I was a kid, but I would never want to do that to another child. I would never want to do that, make a person feel like I felt. You feel so afraid and terrified and vulnerable, and there's nothing you can do. You're powerless, and you are, because you're a child with an adult doing something to you that you don't even know. You don't even know what they're doing.
And
but you know it's not
really
right.
It's really about that pedophile having power and control.
And she said some of them can't be, like, if it happens over years, they can't be rehabilitated.
And I don't think he could have been rehabilitated.
No, that's what she was saying to me. She was saying that it becomes a sexual orientation for a person when they've been abused like that for so long. You know.
Okay. I just want to interject a little bit because it seems like we're just getting a little bit on the line of being a little bit sympathetic and empathetic to him. And let's just remember. I get it. Trust me, but it sounds like that. But what I want to do is just remind everybody that this guy,
director of the show.
I'm just listening. No sympathy, no empathy, because right now it's not just
he
him.
Don't have empathy or sympathy.
Absolutely not.
You know, I respect that, you know, sharing his story and everything, and I feel that, you know, he was molested as a child, but it's no excuse for what he did as an adult, because when it happened to me,
100%.
I was 7 years old and the brother was 47 years old, 46, 47 when it happened.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, I just want to get back to getting on the parents again, because I'm very serious about
Not
this.
even on the parents. What other topics did we have to discuss over here?
Let me just touch up a little
after
bit
you
more,
talk about the parents, and we'll talk about some other topics.
Yeah, because the thing that I'm very angry and upset about, because I'm my parents in particular, because we're looking at, you know, some of these parents were on the land. You know, it's different. It's different for the parents who weren't on the land when their children was up in, again, upstate, and they were down in Brooklyn, and they didn't know what the hell was going on with the children, which is still bad. I still blame them, because how the hell first of all, you let someone sit up there and separate you from your children. You're living in one city and your children are living in another city. You don't know what the hell is happening to them. Second of all, the reason why I'm so serious and upset about it is because both of my parents was on the land when this happened to me. Both of them. My father stood as a guard in front of York's house when I was going back and forth in his house. You know, my mother worked in the office, you know, writing these books, plagiarizing these books, along with so many other women when this happened to me. And so when I approached them and I shared my story with them and everything, and my mother says to me, I always suspected it. And when my dad pretty much has nothing to say, you know, it's like, what the hell?
Like
you know
most
what I
of
mean?
the other parents, yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why I want to talk so much about this, because I look at David, for example, David Noel, Tadic Noel, who went out there and he put himself out there on a limb, sharing all of his information, putting his private information out there, and all of this happening, and
that's right,
personal information, and not a single parent stood up for him.
Nobody,
you know,
not a single parent has came forward and said anything.
Every parent, for the most part, is being silent about this stuff.
Yeah.
And yet their children are coming out here, putting themselves on a limb and in very much danger, because there are so many people out there who are angry with them, who want to hurt them for the things that they said, for just telling their truth. And yet their parents are sitting there back there all quiet, not saying anything, not supporting them, not defending them. And another reason why I'm so upset, because even till this day, after telling my parents this stuff, not one of them has said to me, you know what, I'm sorry this happened to you. Not one of them. You know, and I've tried to have conversation with them, but every time I try to talk to my mother about it, she always changes the subject. I can't talk to my dad about it because he's still a York supporter. He's a nuwaubian right now.
Yeah.
Me and him do not see eye to eye. Because personally, as a son, you know, I can't understand how a father, after hearing that your son came to you and told you that this man molested and raped you, you know, and you still a staunch supporter of him. Still sending money out to the cause and everything else like that, you know. But let me just also remind other people about the word molestation, because I often see that, you know, that has become somewhat synonymous with the York name. But let's put it into context. The word molestation, on its base, simplest term, is just, it could be something as simple as groping somebody or touching someone in a sexual manner.
Anything inappropriate.
It was more than molestation with us.
We
were raped. Okay?
You were raped.
Whenever there's penetration involved, whether it's a finger, whether it's a genital, whether it's your mouth, whether it's a toy, whenever there's penetration involved, that goes beyond molestation. That is rape. And we were raped. We were not just molested by York, we were raped. Okay?
You're raped. Absolutely.
And so these parents need to step up and start speaking up, because they know far more than we do. We were children. They were the adults. They were the ones who were supposed to protect their kids, and they didn't do that. They failed to do that.
Yep, and I agree.
And so I'm calling them out tonight, and they need to step up and take accountability for their part in all of this by not saying anything.
Thank you.
And then not only that, but it's like, you know, the other things that happen is that a lot of the children, their education got neglected, you know, because they were not in school. And so it's like a lot of them.
And the nutrition.
Those are areas that I was hoping that you would touch on that, because people don't realize that. Okay, say down in Georgia, just for example, then they have you had to go through the pylons, you had to go through the guards who carried guns. You were always taught that life outside of the tabernacle was a place of barren. You're going to be destined for failure.
You're going to get AIDS. You're going to die. You're going to do all kind of scare tactics. All kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if you leave there and then you go out there. And in your case,
Chuck, I was in the middle of talking.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to lay that groundwork. But you were talking. No. But you were mentioning that to me before that. You're like a parent. You were basically on Tamaray by yourself.
Yes, a lot of the girls and like the boys, some of them went on the land by themselves without their parents.
Yeah.
And that was like the normal thing. I guess maybe they trusted him so much, thinking that this is, you know, the leader. He's this.
They thought it was the best place for their children to be.
Yes,
they
it was
that's
like
what they
the holy
thought.
land.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was like, you know, the lion's den, and it was, you know,
exactly.
He was like sacrificing the kids, like you know, like he was the devil himself. So a lot of people feel like, I don't know. Some people claim that he was doing voodoo or whatever, but I don't know. But I'm just like, none of this should have happened.
That ain't going to do anything for.
None of it should have happened.
What he was doing.
None of it should have happened at all. You know, and it's like, you know, the fact that our education,
and you can't even put voodoo in that category. Exactly. That's not even.
But let me ask you.
Our education was neglected for years. Our health was neglected for years.
Yeah.
You know, malnourishment. Like some people had to leave the community to get their high school diploma to learn how to drive. not having no job experience at all, because like you're working for hours as minors. Even adults were working for hours, no lunch breaks, not getting paid, no health coverage, none of that. You're just working around the clock with no money, nothing. You know, you just literally your whole life you're just working. And you know, it's like that's child labor violation. You're not even supposed to be working long hours as a minor. Even as an adult, you're not supposed to be working long hours from sun up to sundown and not getting paid for it. Yeah, no lunch breaks, no nothing. You know, no health coverage. Like a lot of people, they were sick, you know, because they were.
He was making them slaves, man. But from sun up to sunset, they're working. You don't see your children. Wow. He had servants, peasants. He probably looked down on them too.
That on a regular, wasn't going to the dentist regular, and some of the products we were using his products that he was making, and it was up there in that shed, and it was getting bad, getting burnt from the sun, so the toothpaste was like brown, you know, half of it did not work, the deodorant wasn't working. I was like, okay, you know, and it's like it was just so much neglect that it's like a lot of people don't talk about. And it's like, yeah, the molestation happened, and yes, parents need to be held accountable just as well as a pedophile that did it. But at the same time, there was mind games and manipulation being played on you know, everybody that lived up there.
Yeah, and
Education
even,
the
was
most
being neglected,
heartbreaking
our
thing,
health.
Anna, to touch up on what you're saying, you know, again, accountability. Our parents were going through this stuff just as much as we were going. Why didn't that move up and leave? I remember being upstate, and I used to literally see women get into fights over feminine hygiene
Because the
products
thing
because there
is, you
wasn't
have to
enough.
understand,
my
it's
gosh.
easier said than done, but it's like so many of these people gave up everything to join this community, and they had nothing, you know?
Yeah, some people didn't
They
even know
didn't
where their
have,
families
they
were.
didn't have families that they could just fall back on and say, oh, I'm going to leave and go back to this person. Because you have to understand, a lot of
They
people
felt
were not
stuck.
in touch with their
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
These people had nothing. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's easier for you to say it, you know, and like, you know, look at it in that way when you're not a part of it. But when you're a part of it, it's so much different, you know?
But
That's like when you're looking,
yeah. I'm sorry,
when you're looking
sister.
outside of someone's abusive
I'm
relationship,
not,
and you like, oh, you know, you should have did this and you should have did that. But it's like, you have to understand that it's so much more when you're being brainwashed and controlled and manipulated, and you have nothing. You have literally nothing.
Here's why I'm saying what I'm saying, because it's not, it is easy to said and done, or to, you know what I mean? But here's the thing. There were people who eventually were kicked off of the land. They didn't have nowhere to go. They lost in touch with their family, but eventually they found a way.
They figured it out.
Yeah,
So
but I'm
point,
saying, like, try to
empathize. I get
you
that.
know,
I empathize completely, because I was one of those people. My family was kicked, eventually told to leave the land. When we were upstate, my family was one of the few families who were left on upstate, because all the people, majority of the people who were upstate eventually migrated down to Georgia. We were up there. And my mom got a call from somebody down Georgia telling her that York wanted her and all of her kids to come down Georgia. And she was like, well, what about my husband? What about my mate? And the woman was like, well, York doesn't want him down there. And my mom, and I think this was the smartest decision she's ever made in her life concerning the upstate. She said, I'm not going down there without my mate. And then from that on, they basically told us we can leave the land. My dad, to this day, and he's an idiot, and I say it now, even if he's listening to this video, I don't care. He's an idiot for talking about this, because he talks as if he's proud about this shit. But he talks about how when we left the land, all he had was a station wagon and $27 in his fucking pocket. Excuse my language. $27. He had 5 children and a pregnant wife who was a baby on the way, and $27 in his life. Now, he was one of those parents, one of those individuals.
Now, ain't that sad, you know? Now think about it now. He didn't even have nothing like monies to rub together. I'm not even good at flipping maths. He didn't even have money to rub together. He had his whole family to take care of. And because, like, what, they wouldn't submit to his needs, he throws them out with just pennies to rub for him and his wife. Now every child have needs. We know that every child have needs. Every child has something, has wanting that, especially if you are a unit. I mean, I've never been part of a unit really or such, but they literally have pennies to rub together. And I can hear the hurt in this man's voice as he's explaining it. It's like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Maybe they should have made more years on what he's got. Maybe 135 years wasn't enough. He did too much. Treating people like slaves, throwing people out, ostracizing people. Ugh.
When he joined the community, he
gave up everything.
for everything.
Exactly.
But
Right.
that's not the reason why I say what I'm saying, because I know my father. And I know that a lot of the reason why the main reason why he did not leave was not because he was afraid to leave, and not because he didn't have anything. It was mainly because of his pride. Because of the fact that he gave up everything, he disconnected from his family. He told everybody in his family that this was the thing, this was it. Everybody should join. The rest of the family said, "No, we ain't going there with you. You do your own thing." His pride, he didn't want to go back
and then
home
you got to come
to those
back.
people and be like, "Oh, wow, you're back. What happened?" You know what I mean?
And all of this happened to my family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
On top of that.
So what I'm saying is that there are other parents who were just like my father, who did not leave because of pride, not because they were afraid they didn't have.
And there were some people that did not have anything, and that's why they
nobody
did not
had
leave,
anything.
and they were afraid.
The reality is no one had anything.
But I'm saying,
but the point is that once you left, you made it. You figured it out.
Yeah, but you can speak for your father, but it's other people, that have their own story. You can't just clump it all your father. You get what I'm saying?
But
I'm saying you have to understand and empathize with other people's situations as well.
Totally.
Because there were people that didn't have a damn thing. They didn't know how to drive. They didn't have any money. Nothing.
I totally
no
empathize
job
that.
experience.
But you see, hold on, Anna, because you're talking what we're talking about here. You got to remember, when our parents joined the community, they were already adults. Many of them knew how to drive. Many of them had job skills when they came in.
No, many of them did not know how to drive. If you were from the city, listen to me. If you were from the city, no, you do not know how to drive. If you lived in New York City your whole life, yes, it is true.
That is not true.
For some, like New York,
you're used to taking public transportation.
Chuck, are you there?
But hold on, let me get back to the point, because I don't want to.
Everybody talking to one another, so I can't understand anything anybody's saying. I was going to mute y'all.
Let's get back. Let's try to get back to try to stay on point, because I don't want it to get too far and then people miss.
Yeah, because I don't want this to be back and forth to us, because we're on the same page.
Let's just agree to disagree, King.
We're on the same page, but nonetheless,
could I say something too?
Go ahead.
I just want to say, to bridge both the points you're both making. Like, King has a lot of pain, and that pain, the saddest thing is that what York did, the saddest thing, instead of what it was supposed to be about, for, of, and by each other, and to protect the children. It's supposed to be all about the children. The whole purpose of being isolated from society was to raise the children in the purest state that they could possibly be raised, and not be exposed to the things that were in the so-called belly of the beast. That was the whole purpose of all of this. And it should have been something beautiful. It could have been about that, but instead you have families ravaged because, King, I get it. Like,
let me just say this. This is not really coming from a place of pain. This is coming from a place of logic. It's coming from a place of logic. Okay.
No, I understand. I understand. But what I was speaking to was this. Yeah. Instead of like, you now you have, and you're not the only child, because so many children went through what you went through, that have a dysfunctional relationship with their parents. So our families, our Black families that were supposed to be unified and supposed to be better, are now broken and splintered and dysfunctional, and have to try to find a path to repair and forgiveness and acceptance and accountability, that may not be found. and it may forever be broken. And that's the saddest thing out of all of this, because the Black family what this was supposed to represent, what he did with his sickness and his predatory tendencies and all of that, you know, destroyed so many people, destroyed the souls of so many people. And so where you're looking at your parents to have had more sense to do certain things, they didn't have it. They didn't have it because they were brainwashed. And when people get brainwashed, their minds are gone. Their minds don't think the same way. Even if they was raised in the world, they don't think the same. They twisted now.
But you know what? Here's the thing. You know what I mean?
Hold on, King. Before you speak, everybody, mute your mic when one person is speaking, so y'all don't talk over one another and override the points, because you know everybody got their own view. So in the chat, there's they're saying, hey, let one person finish and go. So
okay,
just mute. King, you say what you say, and then the sisters, you guys do your thing. And of course, don't try to downplay someone else's start, because it's their own personal experience. And so I've sympathized with all of you guys. So
okay, yep.
All right, yeah. So just mute and then let him go, and then you guys just go in order.
Okay.
All right.
I just lost my train of thought. But
you don't have to. You can pass the mic then if you lost your thought.
and then
if I pass that mic, I bet you get that thought back.
Yeah, pass the mic.
Because it's related to what they're talking about. So go ahead. Someone can.
Okay.
Okay. You gotta mute though, King. Mute while Anna is speaking.
Okay. So another thing that I wanted to discuss as well is like how he, was a con artist who basically lied about everything about him. He lied about his ancestry and his relations to the Al Mahdi family. When he was, his daughter found out that he was not related to the Al Mahdi at all by taking DNA tests and did a whole ancestry test. So he lied about that. He lied about having a degree from the University of Khartoum in Sudan and having a degree in Arabic when he did not even have his high school diploma, because he was taking his GED in jail. So he did not study in the University of Khartoum at all. And it was like everything about this man that he told us and told his followers was a lie. It was like nothing was true about what he said to us about him.
Yeah. What I wanted to add to that again, and I keep going back to this whole accountability thing, in regards to that, the lies and everything else like that.
Yes.
Again, our parents were aware of some of those lies. These adults who came into the community, by the way, they were adults when they came into the community. My parents were in their 20s and 30s when they came, 20s and late 20s, early 30s when they came in the community. They were adults, and they knew this stuff. Like, for example, I talk about how my mom worked in the book, in the office, compiling these books and everything. And and how they actually did all the research and how they put these books together. And York would give his points and say, I want this in the book, I want this in the book, look up this, look up that. And they compiled these books and everything. Yet these books were sold to the public and to the followers and presented to them as if these was his own words. These were his own knowledge that was coming from some mystical space or whatever the case may be. Yet they knew this was not true, and they played along with it. They kept it going. For example,
it was all about the money.
People who were at the beginning of the organization of the community when it first started, they knew the brother wasn't from Planet Risk. His family knew he wasn't from Planet Risk, but yet he
wasn't born in Sudan.
They all continued on this myth and everything like that. So they played into all this. So this is what I'm talking about, the whole accountability and responsibility part about it, and why I understand there were some people, once they got into it, they got all involved in it. They were afraid to leave and everything else like that. But at some point in time, you got to put on your thinking cap and you say, wait a minute. I know this is not true. I know this is not true. I know he's doing this. I know he's not doing this. He's not what he's saying he is. When do you say, you build the courage up to say, you know what? I can't keep on doing this and keep following this man. I can't live here and do this. I can't keep exposing my children to being abused, and not just sexually abused. There were more that we talk about all these different aspects of abuse, mental, emotional, physical. You know what I mean? When we were in Brooklyn, I can't describe the amount of physical abuse we endured, and not just, by other adults. You know what I mean? I remember a time when I was about 5 years old. I was in a room of a bunch of kids, and, in the community, we had this sort of, principle of, one for all for one, in the sense that if one child got in trouble, everybody got to beat him. And so I remember when I was about 5 years old, there was something happened. I don't remember what happened, but we were all getting in trouble. And this sister, mean son of, just mean, she came and she lined us all up, and she took a chair and she sat up beside one of those radiators they got in those in Brooklyn and everything like that, those heating radiators. And she took all of us one by one, took our hands and laid it and pressed it up against, pressed it on top of that radiator, and she held it.
Those books are actually called Actual Facts, where they like, any questions, like York used to do these sessions of questions and stuff like that. So you ask him anything, he answers it. Those books gives like facts on alien, Muslim, Egyptian, whatever, as well. They also had the book's called The Tablet. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, because I remember seeing some of them, and they just give you facts on different subjects, basically.
Down just enough so that we can cry, we can feel the pain, but not enough so that it wouldn't burn us, because then other parents would see the marks on our hands and everything like that. And we she did, all of us, we all stood in the row, you know what I mean? And she did this one by one, burned the hand. I remember I was like the second person in line when this happened. And I remember after she did it to me, I started crying because I was in pain. But as I looked at all these other kids, maybe about anywhere from 15 to 20 of us, lined up, ready to get the same thing that I just endured, I stopped crying for myself, and I started crying for them, because I could feel the pain that they were about to go through. I saw the hurt on them, the fear and everything else like that. There was more than just, and these parents were aware that this stuff was going on. I remember when I was a kid also in Brooklyn, there was a sister who was watching us and everything. Word got to one of the mothers of the children that she was abusing her child. For whatever reason, I don't think they liked each other. And so she would take it out on her child every now and then. That happened a lot in the community. When sisters didn't like your parents or your mother, whatever the case may be, they treated you very bad. And so this mother got wind that she was abusing her child. She came, knocked on the door. We were all running around, kids and whatever, Pampers or whatever. And the minute the sister opened the door, she got knocked out, fell on the floor. Mother beat her up right in front of her eyes. They were aware that stuff like this was happening. And yes, some of them were isolated. It wasn't like it was happening every single day, but there were a lot of things that were happening, from malnutrition. Kids are going to bed hungry, even the parents were. And so when I talk about this whole thing about accountability and the fact that they could have left, I mean, seriously, how much more can you endure? And how can you sit there and watch your children go through all that? It's one thing when you're there by yourself and you don't have no children. You say, you know what? I'm going to chalk it up. I'm going to go through this stuff. I'm committed to this. I'll take all of this nonsense. But when you got children, and mind you, the average family size in the community was about 4 to 5 children. Some had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Maybe up to 12. So you're talking about, as a mother and a father who's sitting here, and this stuff is happening. You hear about this stuff happening to your kids, even if you didn't watch the kids, because not all the parents watched the kids. They had assigned duties and everything in their role in the community. But when you see it, when does it click into you? Say, wait a minute, I can't put my child through this stuff. Let me get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Very few did that. Very few did that.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And I don't have children, but I thought the same thing. I wondered if I had children, I know, you know, I got to a point myself where I started to look around and I was like, why is he letting us go hungry? Why is he letting the kids go hungry? When we run out of food, like it's our fault.
And
Like
when
you
he
know, it's a
had
lot
all
of
this
stuff
money
going
too.
on. Yeah, like I there were things that when I got older that I, you know, because I moved at 17, there were things that when I got older that I saw that that started to make me question. But I always asked myself, I always wondered if I would have been, if I would have, what I would have done if I had a child and he did that to my child. I think of, you know, another sister that I know, she said it took all of her strength not to blow his head off, you know, and she made her way out when she found out what was going on, you know, with her daughter, you know, and it's just something that each person, you know, just like anybody in the world, there's certain people that have a little bit more, maybe they were able to hold on to their mental faculties a little bit more than someone else. But then, you know, everybody that joined this cause joined for different reasons. You know, some people were already not stable. Some people, you know, maybe trying to get away from something. I mean, and then, but generally people really believed in the cause. And when you really believe in a cause like that, you're thinking that everything you're going through is a test that you have to pass, and that this is the best place for your family. Now, I'm not talking about people that, and even people that knew what was happening to their children, in their brainwashed minds, they really still thought, and I this is my belief. I don't know this for a fact because I'm not a parent that went through that, so I don't understand it fully, but I suspect that because I know the power of being brainwashed, you start thinking that you're not even, you abandon your sense of logic of what you know to be logical and what you know to be sensical, or that's not a word, but what you know makes sense, and you start believing the doctrine, that twisted doctrine that he fed everybody, and you start thinking that what you think is right and wrong, because for a minute he went through this thing, York went through this thing, that there's no right and there's no wrong, there's no sin. So when you put that into somebody's mind and you brainwash somebody like that, and it gets into their brain like there's no right and there's no wrong, you start questioning your own sense of what you know is right and wrong. And you start thinking, well, if he's doing it, it must be right. Maybe it's something I don't understand about this. I had a mother tell me, well, maybe it was his culture. And I was like, that's some bullshit, because whose culture is that? What
He
culture
was
is
not
that?
from Sudan.
That's what I,
Yeah.
but even still, like, you know, no, that's not
That
like
was a
that.
lie.
No.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to like speak to the effect of what brainwashing is no joke. Your head is on top of your body for a reason. It rules.
I know.
When you screw somebody's mind up, you have them. And sometimes people's minds get so screwed up they can't ever come back to what they know is right and wrong, or what they know makes sense. And that's I'm just trying to speak to that because it's real. You have people that really cannot associate facts and logic anymore. They used to at one point in their lives, but they no longer can. They no longer can.
And I agree with you on that. I agree with you totally on that. But here's what I have to say in regards to some people. For example, some people who did leave and who excommunicated themselves from the community, is that those individuals realized that they had made a mistake. But yet, again, I still address them because it's like, okay, well, you see that you made a mistake. You see that you were brainwashed. Now you've come to some senses. Okay, how about you get out here and start talking in defense of these children who was abused now? Now that you've come to your senses, you see what I'm saying? So it's not a matter of attacking everybody, because I understand the whole brainwashing concept. People lose their minds and they do all types of stuff they wouldn't normally do. I get that part. But there are a lot of people who did leave the community, who are no longer associated with it, who said, look, I made the worst mistake ever. Speak up now. You have the opportunity to speak up and defend a lot of these children and us who are coming out here and sharing our stories, but yet we're getting so much backlash.
Attacked.
People are calling us demon devils, black devils, and all this other stuff because we're telling them, we're expressing about, the fact that we were molested and raped. And here's what I say to those people, because I think what's happened in all of this, particularly with individuals like Tariq Noel and so many others, I think what these people who are looking from the outside in on this issue, the whole topic, is that they lose that sense of sympathy and empathy because they're looking at us now as adults. It's a different emotional response when you hear about a child being molested versus you're looking at this adult now, you're telling them, hey, I was molested. Because I think the disconnect is they're not putting this into context and say, hey, look, we were children when this happened to us. Don't look at me now as a 30-something-year-old man and say, I can't really empathize for you or sympathize for you. Put it into context. We were children. Some of us were, 7, 8 years old, and there were even some younger, we're 6 and 5 years old. You know what I mean? And so you got to put this into context when you're hearing.
If you lot think this one's bad, man, you should hear Umi, the daughter, what she says about all this. It's just like there's just so much to digest as well. We will be looking at the transcripts, however. It feels like this is going to be a 3-part series. Though I was warned about this before. Trips did warn me. She warned me. She said as soon as you start digging into the nuwaubians, you start off with two videos and you end up with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 videos because there's so much to compact in the videos. There's so much. The children, when they talking now like this as well, it's like parents doesn't get it because they just get immune to the situation, they close their mind to the situation as well. I get where they're coming from on that one. I really do get it. As from the schooling part, yeah, sometimes you can slip as a parent. You won't get that excellence, especially if you're living in a I'll say I call them a eco new age community. Unless you're not moaning, unless you're homeschooled or as well. I'm just talking for myself as a parent with a few children. I would not say not every parent is brilliant at certain things, detecting certain things. Yeah, some parents do get it wrong. On the other hand, he had those parents busy. He had them parents busy. So yes, the parents probably contributed to certain things, yeah. But I think some of the parents was unaware. The ones who was aware may be okay, right? We can stand on their head on that one because they could have gone, but the brainwash was too deep, because remember what they said earlier. If they left the compound, right, different things will happen to them. And even if you talk to a parent when you're in your 30s, right, the parent would not take it in like that. Okay, from experience talking now. They will not take it in like that. They will not take it in like that. They'll be in denial. They say, oh no, So these people, they are very mad with their parents as well. Yeah, yes, Christine. They're angry with them. They're angry with the man. They're angry with their parents. But their parents, some of it was not exactly their fault. He had the parents in one side, and he had the children another side. So therefore, it's easy access. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna let them continue because the Umi one is quite long as well. So this most probably might go into a 3-hour stride, but if not, I might have to go back and come back with Umi's one because you need to hear Umi and what she thinks as his daughter. You need to hear Jacob what he thinks as his son. So Jacob well, Jacob is a whole nother video by himself. Okay, he's so different to the other son. So different. I think I got him wrong, and I can say that. But these people are very hurt, and I hope they are all right where they are right now. I hope they've gotten well, not gotten. I hope they got therapy or some type of something for what they went through. I did put in the chat. There is these cult rescue places. There's one for the UK and there's one for the US, and it's just sad because like you as a parent, you're going in for your enlightenment, thinking that your child's gonna be right in there with you, and this is going on while you are not while you are not aware of what's going on with your child. Yeah, that's all I can say. Hi, Lady Legs. Hi, Soul Armor. Hi, Alexis. Hi, Ghetto Child. SL Davis was in the chat earlier. Christine. Anyway, we're gonna let it. I'm letting this play all the way through. I'm not even gonna stop it. I'm gonna let it play now, and you're gonna hear. I know there's more details coming through. Like I said, some is quite deep. They have very deep feelings, and that. So I showed you the actual facts books, what they were talking about. I showed you the place. It has been destroyed right now. They're taking it down now. But it was up for quite a while. So, anyways, let this continue because we still have how many other people to go through with this Dr. York. Okay, all right.
This discussion, and you're hearing these people coming out this store, telling their stories, even though they're grown adults now. We were children when this happened to us. You know,
I don't see how somebody couldn't put it in perspective, though, King. Honestly,
trust me, I've come across
but I've seen it.
Who,
I've seen me too.
You know, they're like, "What the hell?" You know, and I was arguing with it, and I was stupid for
Calling
arguing
y'all
with this person.
promiscuous.
But you know,
That was just ridiculous. Yeah.
This guy on Facebook, I commented on something on Facebook in relation to York and molestation case, and you know, he came up to me and said some dumb stuff like, you know, why didn't you call the police? First of all, I said, wait a minute. Number one, I said you weren't in the community because if you were, you wouldn't even say no mess like that. You know,
what
children
phone?
talking about you're telling children 7 years old who don't even know what the outside world is like. First of all, I had no concept of a police or the number 911. To me,
even if you did try to call, people were in your mouth and looking at you while you were talking because it was a bunch of people in the office.
And even at that age, I didn't have access to the phone. The kids didn't have access to the phone until 7, 8 years old. The adults were the ones using the phones. But anyway, my concept of authority was the brothers who were patrolling, who were so-called protecting us with these guns and rifles and everything. They were the authority to me. I had no concept of a police officer or cops
half of them probably
or
was
anything like that.
Half of them probably was Mr. York's concubines too.
Well, I don't know about all that, but
no, I know about all that.
Yeah. What I want to do is I want to go and turn to Anna because we would come down to pick up products to take back to the stores to push that misinformation that he was teaching, and because you were so young and you were working, what was life like having to work all those hours, not be financially compensated, in addition having a lack of nutrition? So with all the work you were doing, you were not getting paid, nor were you eating properly. I mean,
it was.
Yeah, what was it like? What was it like?
I mean, it was depressing. You know, that's what it was like. I mean, it was it was times when you were hungry. A lot of us were very skinny, and it's like you were working from sun up to sundown. So it took away your childhood. It took away your time where you're supposed to be in school learning. And supposedly they had the pyramid school, but it's like we wasn't really learning in there either. Because at one point people were going in there for a little bit, but it was really just a dusty shed that they had, put little chairs or whatever, but it was like all this dust on the floor. Like, and then at one point it was like, oh, stop going in there, too. So everybody was working and wasn't getting paid and, didn't get any lunch breaks or anything like that. So it was like all you were doing packing incense or putting labels on shampoos or whatever, or, packing soaps and whatever, else, or putting them in boxes. But not only that, but besides working as a minor and not going to school and not getting a proper education, it was also a sense of like your childhood was taken away, but also your sense of your identity and who you were. Because a lot of people forget too, and this is included in the mind games that he did and the manipulation and control. Everyone had to cut their hair. The women had to cut their hair, wear a little braid on the side. Everyone had to wear black. So that take away from your identity of who you are. And it's like, you had to be like everybody else. And I'm like, okay, why do we have to wear all black? And why do we have to cut our hair as, girls? Like, what was that about? It was just crazy. And a lot of the children that were on there and that grew up, and by the time they left the community, they had to either get their GED or get their high school diploma or whatever, so they can finish their education and go on and, go to college or whatever else they wanted to do, because we were not getting a proper education on the land. Even though he had the money, we could have all went to a private school, but we didn't get that because he was selfish with his money and he did, whatever he wanted to do with his money. Who knows? I don't know. But even with the, I remember one time he donated money to like a track team in Macon or something like that. And I was like, okay, half the kids on the land don't even have anything, not even his own biological kids. Some of them didn't even have their personal things that they needed, clothes, shoes, whatever, education, healthcare, even braces. So it's like you had to put in a request for things that you needed because you did not have the personal things you needed, like soap, toilet tissue, personal needs, toothbrush, deodorant, whatever else you needed. You had to put in a paper request because you didn't have the finances to get it yourself. Sometimes it would get approved, sometimes it wouldn't. We didn't have like vitamins that we needed. It was a bunch of things. That's what I'm saying. These are the things that people don't talk about, included in the, what happened in the community. It wasn't only the molestation. It was so much more and so many other things that happened besides only the molestation. And then some of the girls, they were looking real pale and, real skinny because of like lack of nutrients. Even some of the adults were, very skinny and small because of lack of nutrients and protein and a proper diet and, not getting proper health, going to the hospital, getting checked up and just a bunch of stuff.
Wow. That's heavy.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
With the last comment you just made in reference to the lack of nutrition and eating, was he using food as a caviar to molest?
I don't know because the thing is, it's like he had food in his house, but what he would do is like when like some of the young girls or young boys or whoever used to hang around him, he used to have it where you can eat all the snacks and junk food that you wanted. You can have all the ice cream that you wanted, you can have all the snacks and junk food.
Yeah,
he was allowed
that's
to
true.
watch, movies and stuff like that. So
he used a
but
lot of junk food and sweets and stuff.
Yes, it was only in his house though. We didn't have those in our house because it was very proportioned and it was a lot of children in one house. So a lot of times the food would run out fast. So you didn't have all that food to, feed everybody like that.
It was a little bit different upstate. Food, I wouldn't say in abundance, but in contrast to perhaps Georgia or even Brooklyn, we had a little bit more.
Yes.
There were still the parents still starved sometimes every now and then because the children were first, with the exception of him. He had whatever he wanted. But when it came down to eating and things of that nature, the children always ate first, and then the parents would have whatever was remaining. There were times where parents, sometimes starved because maybe it wasn't enough after all the children ate and everything else like that. But in contrast to Brooklyn and perhaps Georgia, we had a little bit more food. And so food was never used, but again, candies, popcorn and things of that nature was always used as an enticing thing to sort of bring you to his house. Because you knew that once you went to his house, you could have all the candy you wanted. You could have all the treats you wanted. You could watch whatever movie you wanted, and he just pretty much let you do whatever,
And he was even giving minors alcohol too.
So based on y'all's daily routines, was that a work towards a particular hierarchy in the group, or it was just basically the activity of the day?
It was basically like what people did on a regular that lived up there. It's like, you woke up and everyone had their own little jobs that they did, and you did whatever job that you were to do. I mean, like, some of the kids, they did play in the playground and stuff like that, but it's like if you were a teenager and up to an adult, you basically had like a job that you did, and you was basically in the office all day. And sometimes you might have went out here and there to eat, or if he wanted to, to take a trip, to Disney or whatever, once in a blue, he would have a group that he would take there. But basically, it was like all you were doing was working. Yeah.
And Monica,
you couldn't leave, huh?
I'm sorry, Monica, to add to her point, let me just say this, because upstate, it was a little bit different as well. We didn't work as children. We pretty much ran around and played for the most part. But the difference, and perhaps the reason why, is because you got to remember, when we were upstate, we had parents living on the land with us. In Georgia, according to, Anna and so many other people, the parents were not on the land with them. And so
some people's parents were on the land.
Some people, but majority of them, we probably had the ratio of children to parents were probably more upstate, and therefore the parents did the work up there. Whereas we ran around and played versus down in Georgia, he put all the kids and the teenagers to work.
Mm-hmm. And they were not getting paid, and no.
Do you know what gets me right? Is how he groomed them with sweets and food and stuff like that. So he made sure that the they was not able to feed themselves and that, and then he used the food as collateral, like to get the children. Is like, I mean, like we hear of these things was happening on the outside, and needless in a whole compound, and he groomed them all the way. He groomed them all the way. Even on some of the videos when they're dancing and stuff like that, right? They look so happy in the videos, the children, because you see the children, and then just to know that most of this stuff was going on while certain things was going on, like the filming of the Saviour's Day, or when they're on the compound doing the question and answer and all that. So once he put on his big show, he goes and does what he does, saying that the girls are his wives and all this stuff. Yeah, you cannot make excuses for the choices the adults chose to make for themselves. However, the children should have been protected by the parents. They should have, but it seems like only some of them left. Some of them left the compound. Some of them, the ones who heard whatever went on, they left the compound. I don't even want to rush this as they're talking right now, because there is a girl, and she actually talks about what happened to her as well. I think as well, Abigail. Like I said, there is a lot to, like they say, so-called unpacked, as they put it. It's like the falling of grace. He fell from grace, but he was already that way already before he started up the organization group already. He was already a certain way. He had already been in prison before. So Yeah, I mean, I'm going both ways with you on that one, Christine, because some of the parents did actually take their children and leave, or they heard certain. But the biggest one was the one I'm gonna attach it, put it underneath the video. Was the one who went on Montel. She's the one who told the biggest story ever, right? Of what happened to her while she was there and stuff. I think she ideally was the bravest one because she literally went to the police. She went straight to the police and she told them what was going on, and that's how they started trying to get him as well. So I mean, I'm just remembering bits and pieces from what I've seen and stuff like that. But anyways, I'm gonna let it play.
Health insurance, no nothing, no breaks. So it was like definitely against, work. Basically, you're just violating all type of labor laws, not only with minors, but also with adults too. So you're not supposed to have someone in the office from sun up to sundown, just working to death. Like that's not what you're supposed to do. And
True.
not getting paid for the job that they're doing. You're not getting vacation. You're not getting sick days. You don't have no health insurance, nothing. You don't get no lunch breaks. Like, no. And I mean, I didn't even know that wasn't normal until when I came out into the world and I had got my first job. And I was like, oh, I have to clock in. Oh, I get paid for the work. I didn't even know.
Wow. Do you think the reason you guys don't have any kids, well, I think two don't have kids, is because of the trauma?
I do want to have a child one day, just not right now.
No, for me, that's not the reason. No.
I'm not able to have children because of not York, but a guy that I married before him, But
I think that that touches on something because certain individuals who contracted something, I'm not going to get into it too deep, but as a result, and this is going to be a question that I'm going to bring up, as a result of not having proper medical attention, it caused them to not be able to, yeah. And that brings me to a question for Anna. Because you had, I think it was Dr. Bright or Dr. Thompson who lived on the property.
Don't be asking me no question that.
Oh no, I'm not going to ask you anything.
Okay.
Of course. No, what I was asking is, were they as physicians, were they available for anybody?
They were available. Okay, the only time I remember Dr. Thompson coming up there was probably to check on Mr. York here and there. I don't ever remember him checking on any of the kids for anything.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember him checking on any of the kids. And yeah, I don't remember. And I mean, yeah, I'm not even sure what kind of doctor he was or if he was certified, to be honest, but I don't remember him checking on any of the kids.
He was in DC because I remember him coming to our classes on Rhode Island Avenue. But next thing I know, he was sent down to Georgia, and by he being from what I was told, because I don't have any evidence that he was
obviously he wasn't coming up there doing what he was supposed to be doing if,
and yeah, that's
Mr.
telling.
York,
that is
was
very
having
telling.
all the health problems that he had going on. I don't know what kind of doctor he was and what job he was actually doing.
And
but the kids should have been getting checked on as well and getting proper nutrition and vitamins and whatever else they needed and eating 3 meals a day and so on.
So you being there, you saw, you already know of him, and from what you have observed, he wasn't performing any type of medical evaluations or
not on the kids.
Recommending that you get, because from what I know from reading the testimony from the trial, people weren't even going to the doctor.
No, nobody was going to the doctor at all. And they weren't going to the dentist, none of that.
Maybe the emergency room if it was something like whatever, but sometimes not that either.
Yeah, and
You know,
again, this is the same thing that was going on upstate in Brooklyn too. You know, we didn't go to the doctors either. I remember being a kid in Brooklyn and I got the mumps and everything. The only time you really went to the hospital or something was there was some sort of emergency or a serious infection of some sort.
Exactly.
But you never really
It was
got
like
any
a
sort of
bad thing to
routine
go to the
checkup.
doctor.
Yeah, it had to be very, very serious to the point where if we didn't get some sort of medical attention, there could be some sort of problem in terms of,
Child
attention being brought in the
services.
community or whatever the case. Yeah, child services
Right.
or whatever the case may be. So if it wasn't, life threatening or something that was very serious, we generally didn't go to the hospital. Your mother and other women were kind of like the nurses. They nursed you to health. And for
then
me,
too, go ahead. I'll say it after you do.
Upstate, it was fortunate that I don't remember any incident where anybody got any sick really bad. As far as any STDs relating to York, I don't think he had none at that time because I'm sure some of us would have caught it. But we didn't get any sort of medical attention either. It was just anything severe or life-threatening. That's when you were sent to the hospital.
And then too, I was saying, maybe if some of the children did go to the doctor, then it would have been found out that he was molesting some of the boys and some of the girls. And that's like a lot of people is like, oh, how could it have went on for so long? It could have went on for so long because you have to realize we were not in school, so you didn't have teachers to report it,
Yeah.
and you didn't. It's like he had so secluded and isolated. Who were you
even from your own parents? Sometimes,
yes, you would get in trouble for talking to your parents sometimes. And it's like, who were you going to go tell? You couldn't tell a teacher. You couldn't tell, social worker. You couldn't tell the police because you're isolated on this one land. You're secluded on this one land. You're not in school. You're not out in the public like that where you can talk to all these different people and get help. You're not going to the doctor like that. So it's like, even if something was going on, so that's how he was able to carry it on. And then with the silence, people being quiet about it for so long and parents not speaking up if they did suspect something was going on. And that's what continued. And he molested people from the Ansar Law community all the way to Jezza Abba, all the way to Edenton, Georgia. And I feel like as well that the sheriff of that town needs to be held accountable. And so does DFACS, because if Pauline sent a letter out to DFACS as well as the sheriff, how come it took 4 to 5 years later for anything to be done? He was marching up there and going up there for building permits and building violation, but I didn't see him not one time marching up there with DFACS to check on those kids. Nobody.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a serious point because that's another element that needs to be over time. It needs to be pulled out as well because they played a role in the neglect.
Exactly. And they continued to be silent because they had the letters, saying that, and they knew that it was underage girls getting pregnant by Mr. York and going to the hospital. And you see that going on and you're not saying anything. And DFACS they didn't say anything either. So it's like y'all just as held accountable as the parents who knew and everybody else if y'all are silent about it. Because DFACS didn't do nothing. No, so did the sheriff. He didn't do anything. So I was like, you didn't march up there like you marched up there to put the padlocks on the building, none of that. He came up there a few times, and not once did I see him come up there with DFACS and say, let me check on these kids and go in these houses and check on them. And that's why I say it was more of a power struggle between him and Mr. York with the zoning violation and all that, and the threats that he was putting against them when he was making those articles and giving it to the sheriff and the people who worked in the county. So it was more of a power struggle between Mr. York and Sills. And I'm like, and then y'all want to act like y'all really cared about the children when y'all didn't give a fuck about the kids at all. It was basically about y'all and y'all ego. And Sills wanted to play Savior now. Like, oh yes, and I brought him down 4 or 5 years later. Like really, when more kids got molested, more damage
for 4
got
and
done.
5 years more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you a lot. You really did a great job.
Damn.
So I want to understand the brainwash piece a little bit more in reference to going back to daily activities and routines. Did y'all have like Was it like group sessions? Was it like training sessions where you're learning a particular way? Like, so for example, right? If you go to, okay.
It wasn't no training going on, and it wasn't a group session. It was basically like, you work here in this department, you work there in that department, and you just, do the work. It wasn't no training done.
The brainwashing happened from reading the books, and then going to the classes. That happened first.
Okay, yeah,
and
that's what I'm asking.
The reason you go. Yeah,
and not only that.
So classes. I call it training. You call it classes.
Oh,
so the classes.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Like, what training? I'm thinking you're talking about job.
I'm sorry. I'm military. I'm military. We call classes training. Sorry. So the classes were they like, okay, so you didn't go to like a regular grade school type deal, but you had classes on books that York have written. So I suspect it was like intro. It was on religious topics, or
and you have to understand too. Okay, I'm gonna say
that's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to understand. Because I think when people try to get a feel for like, okay, why did they stay again? And when we hear brainwash, we like, okay, so what exactly? How? I mean, like how? Like people say military people are brainwashed, and I'll say, well, no, we wasn't.
Okay. So how he did his brainwashing is that he was a talker. He talked a lot. So it's like when you were around him, he was always talking, and that was his form of brainwashing that he did. When he was telling people, y'all family don't care about y'all, this and that. Oh, and I remember him saying one time, oh yeah, y'all think, y'all gonna go out there and get your degree or whatever, or your high school diploma, and he tried to make it seem like it didn't mean anything to have an education. It's like he wanted people to be so dependent on him, but not having an education, but not knowing how to drive, but not having no, just no job experience, by being cut off from their families. So it's like he wanted people to be so dependent and relying on him that they didn't have nothing. And he would get mad if people try to leave or go out there into the world. And, he talked a lot. So when he always was talking, either he was on his porch, on his patio, or when he was in the office, wherever he was, he always talked a lot. And when he was doing that, that was his indoctrination, when he was doing his brainwashing.
Also, at one point in Brooklyn, we couldn't watch regular TV. You couldn't listen to regular radio. He had his own station. He broadcasted what he wanted everybody to watch and what the information he wanted everybody to be subject to. And it would play all day. You'd hear it, you'd hear different things, or you would see if there was if some people had access to television, a lot of people didn't. But if you were, in the back office, he streamed whatever, he just put on whatever programming he wanted to put on. Sometimes it was regular music, but oftentimes it was,
his music,
what we can call secular music, the Ansar to Allah. Exactly. So,
well, a lot of times he used to play, particularly in Jazz Abba, he used to play his music.
Yes, his York music. Exactly. I
used to hear that a lot.
York Productions music, exactly. So, and in terms of the classes I was speaking about, this is what people would come to get information. He used to have classes in Brooklyn on Sundays or Saturdays and Sundays. I'm not sure. I can't remember the day. But people used to, from the public or people who were interested in moving in, would go to class where you could ask questions, and it was the indoctrination of the books. So it was a big thing to be an Ansar. You had to know what you were talking about. So you studied those books like they were like they were something you needed to like memorize, so you could battle anybody at any given point in the Bible and the Quran or whatever, and you would know what you're talking about. So when you ingest all that, that's where the brainwashing occurs, and then it's perpetuated. That's what you teach the children. That's what you teach everybody in there. That's what everybody believes. And then, like Anna said, he's a talker. If you were around him, he was talking. He was, and we would think he was dropping gems. He was giving information. He was, getting information from, he used to call himself an avatar. So you would think and then he would get into these weird personality moods where you would think he's getting, possessed by some being from another planet.
Probably was his mental disorder.
Yeah, but this is
It's
what people used to
schizophrenia.
see. Yeah, people used to see this and they would think that, he's channeling. It was just, it had to be, I imagine it would have to be extremely exhausting or truly something wrong for somebody to be able to behave like that, even in an inner circle.
And I mean, it
just
was because he
it's
had
just
mental disorders that,
yes,
was
yes,
proven.
yes.
There's
So
schizophrenia, bipolar,
exactly,
and
exactly.
whatever
So
else.
exactly. So when you're already indoctrinated with the doctrine from the book.
Do you know there is somebody else who uses Avatar, who used to use Avatar a lot? I feel maybe that person was around this person too. I mean, though it's been said that they're all connected in some form or fashion, because he uses Avatar, Immortal. Nice. I see I free now, and this take him over of the possession of the body. So-called downloads. Wow.
That you read and you studied like they were, the gospel. And then you had, being around the person or not being around the person and just studying the books. This is what you're going off of. This is the information you're going off of.
And he instilled fear in people. He always made it seem like the end of the world was coming.
In the dunya, you go into the world.
Like if you go out there, you're not going to be protected, or all these bad things are going to happen to you. And he instilled a lot of fear in people.
This man was crazy. I mean, I recall. I'm telling you, the things that he came up with, and these, like, again, these parents, and they believed a lot of this nonsense. I remember a time upstate. One time, we were told by York that a mothership was coming. And I remember everybody on the land upstate was basically running and frantic. They were in chaos. Oh, a mothership is coming. It's finally coming. He told everybody this mothership was supposed to come up and pick up the 144,000, whatever, And I remember it was nighttime, right? And all the kids are running around. The kids was somewhat scared, but at the same time, they were excited because they wanted to see this. We all wanted to see the mothership and everything else like that. And the parents sitting up here perpetuating this myth, letting us believe that this mothership was coming. Again, talking about the parents playing their role in all of this nonsense, And so what happened
some of them really believed it.
Yeah, some of them believed it, and some of them knew it was. Some of them knew it was bullshit, but yet they kept on going. And so what happened was that the night went by. The next morning, nothing came by. And what York told everybody was that basically we weren't ready. The mothership came by, but we weren't ready, so it went past us. And this bullshit, like all of this nonsense, he used to tell people that, and they believe in these parents walking around here. Oh, well, we weren't ready. We weren't.
They probably still waiting for the mothership.
Yeah, I mean, and then stupid stuff like, for example, like Christmas, for instance. He would celebrate the same Christian or paganist religions such as Christmas, for example, but he would switch in Halloween, but he would just switch the name of them. For example, Christmas they called Children's Day as opposed to Christmas, and instead of a fat white man in a red coat coming down a chimney, a Santa Claus, they said angels were coming down to bring us gifts. For Halloween, they called that it wasn't called Halloween, it was called Prophets and Angels Day, where we would dress up as the prophets in the Bible. I remember one time I can't remember if I was Abraham or Noah. I was dressed up as one of them in the Bible, and we would run around on the land, going from house to house, picking up candies and stuff. But we were celebrating these same Christian and paganist religions and everything, these secular religions, but yet they would just change the name of it. And again, the parents were playing along with all this nonsense. They knew what this stuff was what it really was, but they were playing along with it.
And see, a large part of that, and I'm not that I'm excusing it, it's just that a lot of people who were really, really into it because they believed in the movement, they were like, okay, this is good for them to celebrate, have our own holidays, around that, so that the children can participate with something when everybody else is celebrating Christmas, everybody else is doing that. Our children can have something to celebrate too. But
Well, why
again,
not do it on a different day?
no,
Why do it the same day and you just call it by a different name?
To coincide with what they're seeing in, you know, in other areas in school, you know, because you know, you lack when you don't celebrate the same holidays and you see other kids celebrating something and you want to do that around the same time. That's just my feedback on that. But I get what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying.
I'm speaking in the sense because I never went to school, and so I had no other concept of that. So if they never even mentioned the whole, you know, children and angels,
you would never
prophets
know.
and angel day and children, I would never even know. I never even know Christmas existed. I never even know what the hell a holiday was.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so why perpetuate a myth and tell us a lie? It's no difference from what these people out in the outer world were doing when they were telling their children about Christmas.
That's
They're lying to us and telling us angels are coming down to bring us gifts.
Right.
You're not doing anything different.
You're right.
I think like when you think about this whole thing, and even like Mr. York itself, it's like what makes it so sad about the whole situation is that it was supposed to be like this, you know, pure community and this, you know, mission that he was supposed to be on to save the children. And it's like he literally just like lied about everything about who he was.
Just destroyed.
It's like he lied about his ancestry, he lied about his education, he lied about being there to save the children. When you know, basically like just damaged and like, you know, destroyed all the children. And then he still sits there in jail and pretend that he's innocent and that he didn't even do anything. And he never apologized to anybody for the damage and the hurt that he did, not even to his own main wife, Kathy's son, you know? I'm like, you haven't apologized for anybody that you damaged, like, you know.
And that would be a starting point, even though he can't ever make it right. That would be a starting point to say, listen, I have a problem. I'm sorry. Like, even though he can't ever make it right, ever.
But I think that
it could save these children from getting attacked and people from telling the truth, getting attacked by people who think, oh, he could never do anything like that. Protect the ones that you destroyed. At least do that.
They don't know.
Do that exactly. But he could be the one to do that, but he won't do it. He could be the one to shut it down, but he won't.
I think that's the start of bringing closure for a lot of people, particularly the victims, is that, you know, we could sit up here and be like, oh, well, he's sitting in prison for 135 years. And to some people, that just might be enough. You know, I don't care even if it was relating to the child molestation or whatever. At the end of the day, he's sitting in prison for 135 years. But that's not enough for the victims who know that, okay, there is a part of that hasn't been acknowledged, that, you know, that we are telling the truth. You know what I mean? For the most part, there are people running around here still thinking we're liars, still calling us devils and everything like that. And so I think for the beginning process of getting that closure is for number one, for him to come out and just admit that that he did this stuff.
And people need to wake up and realize he's not this holy man that they think he is, you know.
But he's the one, he's the only one, right?
You know? And it's like he was just a con artist, and he wasn't no holy man. He was just a fucked up person, a fucked up pedophile that went and damaged more children, more, you know, and everybody.
He was no different from any of these other religious leaders who started organization back in the day, like Jim Jones, Father
just trying to make money
by
lying about.
All of these people, he was the same thing, you know. And the interesting thing about this all is that, you know, when you talk about the inception of all of this, the organization, how think of the time period in the late 1960s and 70s. You know, there was a movement even before that where all of these organizations were starting up. You know, everybody was preying on the hopeful.
They were looking for a savior or a black leader
hopeful, you know,
to look up to.
Individuals who's looking for, you know, to be saved or to be removed from their circumstances. And so, you know, when I think about this and I think of my dad, you know, and I'm kind of revealing a little bit about who he is or whatever, but he came from down Mississippi. He's from the rural South, down in the deep South. And he grew up in a time where racism was apparent and very blunt. You know, he told me a story about one time he was walking to school and he saw a black man hanging in a tree. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so he come from that period where racism was very apparent, you know, being called a nigger daily, you know, and developing this sense of like, who are these white people? And so when he came up north and he heard about York talking all this stuff. The white man is the devil. That's what got him. He was hooked. That's all he needed to hear to join. The white man is the devil, because in his mind he rationalized that all the corrupt things that these white people were doing and how evil they were, they must be the devil. And that's what captured him. And I believe it may have done the same thing to many other people.
Yeah,
you know,
that's exactly
people who are looking, are trying to understand what's going on in the world. He had, quote unquote, the answers for it. And that's how he captured them. But
that's
then
exactly
he held them with all this mythical bullshit that he told them and everything else like that. And all these fake stories and all these misinformation that we're talking about. And again, talking about accountability, the women in particular who worked in those offices, who made those books, knew that a lot of that stuff was not true and a lot of it was plagiarized.
And I worked in that department for some time also when I was in Brooklyn. I did proofreading. And when and again, this goes back to the brainwashing. You look at the books and you get the information. Like, he'll bring up a point. He used to have these sessions with us where he would lecture and we would, take notes about what he was talking about, and say he wanted to lecture about this topic and make it a book. So the sisters would, listen to what he was saying. Everybody would dictate or whatever. And he'd make the point that he wanted to make and make sure this is the points that everybody touched on. And then you go research it and you get the information and then you compile it, you write it. Then he looks it over and he's like, yeah, this is whatever. So it was an exchange like that. So you're thinking in your brainwashed mind that he's just adding to this information that already exists. So it's not like...
Did it ever dawn to you in that process to say, well, wait a minute, I'm the one who's really making this book?
Not at all. That's the strange thing. This is why I can speak to brainwashing to a certain extent, because my mind didn't even think that way. I didn't even think that way. And I know that the rest of the sisters in there, well, a lot of them, there could be some that didn't, because I don't know what was on their mind. But I know when we would work on something, and I didn't work long on that type of thing, but I was in there for a minute I was exposed to that. And I saw how the process was. And you're thinking, you feel gassed up. You feel like I'm part of the mission. I'm part of spreading the word and the doctrine straight from the Avatar, from Malachi, from blood. You think you're on a mission. You're not even thinking on the level of, wait a minute. So, because you're hearing information out of his mouth, I'm sure he heard from somewhere, okay, that we didn't hear from, because he watched regular TV. You know what I'm saying? Some of us watched TV with him when we were there, but I'm sure he watched stuff like Discovery Channel and stuff that I watch now. And I'm like, wait a minute, Shambhala? Okay, I remember him talking about that. But here, there's a book, a whole book out, a whole, documentary about this that was out a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? But you don't, these things don't occur to a brainwashed mind. They just don't, because you're all up in the mix with the illusion. Like you all up, your mind is caught up in its sense of imagination, and it believes what it's hearing. And you like that. You think you're helping with this, and you don't think, oh well, this book already existed. He's speaking to this, but you thinking he's adding some extra knowledge on top of that. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, and to your credit and to the sisters' credit, I do understand, because you're talking about a period of time, number one, where the internet was not around, and so information was not as easily accessible. Sure, you can go to the library and find things, but again, we didn't have access to the library.
Exactly.
So I get that part. But when you're actually talking about the process and you're like, you seeing that you're doing all the work. Number one thing that trips me out a lot of time when people refer to, and I think, Anna, you said it one time, but I don't think you meant it in that sense. You said, he wasn't sharing his money. It wasn't his money. All those people worked and gave that money. That was their
it was
money.
our money.
You know what I mean? All those people contributed through the welfare system and through peddling and through all other different types of activities.
Right.
They worked their ass off. Meanwhile, he's just sitting around, coming up with ideas and everything and plagiarizing all of it and
molesting
traveling different
kids.
places and everything,
Right.
and
Right.
abusing their children while they're working.
Right. Right. Right.
And so
giving everything.
absolutely. And I don't think they realize, and that's the thing that I'm talking about. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Did anyone stop to think and say, well, wait a minute, we're doing all of this. We're writing and compiling the books. We're making all the damn money. We're the ones raising the children, because he ain't raised a single child, not even none of his. He didn't watch a single child. We're doing all of this stuff.
I don't think that was. I think that was an after. You know how they say 2020. Your hindsight is 2020 vision.
Yeah.
That you don't when you in it. And again, I wasn't in everybody's mind, so I don't know every sister that maybe there was a sister here and there that was like, wait, hold up. But for the most part, when you're part of a collective like that, and again, remember the way that he was able to gas people up.
Yeah.
With just the recognition and the accolades of, oh, you this is you're working on this mission, for the lamb, for the you're thinking, you're not even thinking, your mind is so far from what's really going on. It's just completely removed from it and in another reality. And we all know how the brain, the mind is a very powerful thing. And when somebody controls that, it's a wrap. It can be a wrap unless somehow, some way, by some thread of a chance, you're able to really get to that point where you rationalize, or something happens where it makes you, it takes you back from and goes, wait a minute. But not everybody was able. I'm so grateful that some of us were able to do that.
One of the things that I another reason why I'm so adamant and I guess serious about this is that, I've watched my mom through her process, through the transition and everything else like that. And one thing, despite the fact that I'm still upset with her on so many other levels, I do commend her, because my mother was one of those women who tried to get away. She attempted to escape at least 3 times. I remember when we were in Brooklyn, she grabbed all 5 of her children, walked off of that from behind the gates, and we were up at the train station. She was ready to go. Somebody discovered that she left. They got her and brought her back. When we were upstate, she somehow got in contact with her family. She was plotting a getaway to have somebody come up there and she meet them somewhere and she get the hell out of there. She attempted that several times. So I know just from that, her experience in that, and other women as well who did the same, who wanted to do the same thing.
Oh yeah, it was.
Maybe not have attempted. So when you think about that, you're like, okay, well, these women in particular know something's wrong. They got something going on that they're figuring something out. And I understand them. A lot of people weren't like that. And I can empathize. But it just bothers me to understand that, especially when it comes to your child.
Your children.
Because in the sense that you are their creator.
Yes.
Your parents are your creator. They are supposed to be your protector at every level, on every level. And if you can't protect your child, that is to me the greatest sin in the world. When you are incapable of protecting your child, or not necessarily incapable, when you choose not to protect your child.
Yes,
that is the worst thing that you can do.
I agree with you. This is the other thing I'll add to that, though, King. In Brooklyn, which was the setup, and I thought about this again after the fact. But when everybody moved in there, you had the children separated. Everyone was separated. The family unit was separated. Only the top peddlers. Again, why?
Why the only person that would know that was Miss New York.
Yeah,
you can blame Mr.
Agree to it.
Again,
no.
Again,
King, stop trying to act like it was so easy to be like, oh yeah, you can blame whatever you're saying, because it's like you're making it seem like
it's so easy. What I'm doing is placing accountability. And at the
end of the day,
are,
but it's
at
like
the end
you
of the
have
day,
to understand.
You have to ask yourself. A lot of our parents didn't come from that background. They didn't. This
Yeah,
was
but
all
like,
new.
but
Hold
like
on a second.
Ruby said,
Let me finish my point.
okay,
A lot
let
of
me
our
talk real
parents,
quick because I was talking before you. Like
a
Ruby
lot of
said, you
our
have to
parents.
understand that a lot of them were also brainwashed,
I understand
and
that, but
that comes into play.
I'm getting before that. Okay. A lot of our parents, when they came in the community, they were not exposed to this kind of lifestyle. They came from different lifestyle. This was all brand new to them. So the fact that they came into this environment and they realized this setup, and no one was like, oh, wait a minute, this ain't right. Your children, you're over here, and your children in another damn state or another city. Come on.
King, let me speak to
Come
that
on
just for
now.
a second.
This is even
I get
before
what
the
you're
whole
saying.
Did you ever
brainwash.
ask your mom
This is
about it?
before absolutely. But I already
What did
told
she
you at the
say?
beginning of the thing, every time I try to talk to my mom, she changed the subject.
It's
and I can't
painful
have
for
that
her.
conversation with her.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that you don't separate your child like that, your children like that. You don't allow your child to be in another city or state when you're here and you don't know what the hell is going on with them.
This
is
is
even before
absolutely
all the
correct.
brainwash.
But when you move,
He sounds so hurt. He sounds so hurt. He sounds so hurt. He's like, he can't believe his mom did that. Like, his mom put him in that situation. Or he just like, wow. He's just, he's very cut up about it. I can hear it in his voice. Very cut up.
in King, when your parents moved in, they were already there. They were already brainwashed.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't, because all of our children were born in the all of the children were born in the community. They were not.
But I'm saying they moved in because they were brainwashed. They moved in because they were already hooked, line, and sinker with the doctrine.
They were not. My
you
parents,
have to understand
they converted. They converted though, King, right? They converted and they moved in,
Listen,
right?
listen. It wasn't. You don't get brainwashed. There's a sense of being manipulated into joining something, but at that point you're not brainwashed. Once you're in it, for most of the people,
you obviously must
that's
not
when
understand like what it is to be in a cult and how people
No,
get
but
brainwashed.
because he was born
what are you
into
talking
this.
about? I was in it.
You
were in
you were
it,
born
but
into
when
it.
did you leave? When did you leave Jess Appa?
It doesn't matter. I was
I'm
born
asking a
and
question.
raised in it. It doesn't matter. I was
Yes,
9
it
years old.
does.
It does not.
You left when you were 9, right?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so some people were in there since they were toddlers all the way until 19.
I was born in it. I wasn't a toddler.
Some of the parents, but you left at 9 years old. I'm saying it was some children that were in there a lot longer, and it was parents that were in there a lot longer. And obviously, as you can see, this man had a lot of control over a lot of people. It wasn't only our parents. Did you see how big the organization was and how much control he had over them?
And that's the
hold on. I got a question real quick.
Go ahead.
I want to interject because I'm hearing what you're saying, King. I hear what you're saying, Anna. But from the outside looking in, this is how it looked to me: is that he controlled. I'm Sean. He controlled all of the minds of everyone that he encountered. And like I believe it may be in Ruby or you, Anna, that said that people were indoctrinated. Now, in order to even get near that land, he would have had to have present himself to you in a way that people held him in high regard. And from that moment forward, it was easy to fall in love with him because he talked crazy about other doctrines and situations that led to whatever he started to formulate. Now, the question that I actually have is pertaining to, y'all talked about the diet. You talked about how it was on the land. You talked about your personal experiences and encounters. King is real passionate about the parents. There's some personal situations that took forth. Ruby was real close to York as well. So I respect every last one of you guys' experiences. But as far as communicating, you said communication was limited and it was conduced down to certain things. Now, the only way that he could do that, based on the other people that have came on the platform and have interviewed about their experiences, was the fact that he actually separated the women and children and the men from one another on the compounds. But in all of you guys' experiences with him personally, um, you know, do you think that he intentionally did some of the things that he did out of his own ignorance, or his ability to know that he had that power over you?
What do
Can
you
I?
mean, like?
What I mean by, like, to say, for instance, you guys spoke to him not wanting to speak to you, or not speaking to you for a certain amount of time. And then
Yeah,
when he deemed it necessary to speak to you, then he would speak to you again. Like, was that supposed to, like, truly hurt your feelings? And
that
you
was
want
one a part of his mind games and his manipulation tactics that he used.
okay.
I think in some regards, yes. To answer your question, yes, that was one of the things that he did. But again, here's what I always go back to: one man does not run an organization. Okay, it takes a network of people
Oh
to run an
Lord.
organization. See, there you go, Anna. Please don't do that, because I don't do that to you. Okay, my point is that it takes a network of people to run an organization. Don't no one man have control over thousands of people like that, especially when you're talking about the community was broken up into different satellites, into cities, and all over up and down the East Coast, the Northeast, in Washington, D.C., in Philadelphia, where many of them York have never even visited. He never even went to those communities. And those people had never had any interaction with him. So my
Can
point is
I
that,
speak to that when you
hold
finish?
on, can I,
When
Would
you
you
yes,
finish?
agree that
yes,
they
when
were
you're finished.
passionate? But would you agree that those networks of people that he communicated with on the daily were very passionate about Dr. York? Because I've heard a person come on the platform when Brother Anpu was on here, and he was giving his illustrations about the court case, the personal situations, and the things that he experienced on the land. And that brother wanted to challenge everything, and he never met York a day in his life.
Interesting.
That's the point. That's the point. The brother Sean and King. What I wanted to speak to, you'll find that there's people, the people who've never met York, who never even would never even have the opportunity to meet him a day in their life. Those are the most strongest, most brainwashed people you'll ever want to meet. And it's because of the books. They're already brainwashed. Okay, they're already brainwashed. It's like how people follow the Pope. It's like people all globally. You got Catholics who look at the Pope like he's like. I mean, if they see the Pope, they fainting and crying and screaming and and think he can create miracles for them. That's the effect that York had on everybody that follows him. He still has that effect on people that will never ever lay eyes on him or never be in his presence. Strong, strong, strong influence because of what the the
But see,
the, the
but
books
here's
have done in it to their mind.
But here's my question: is if for those individuals who've never met him and who have never had any relationship with him, is the effect really coming from York, or is it coming from other people who are speaking on his behalf? Because mind you,
Absolutely,
there were a lot of
absolutely,
people who went out there to recruit, and they spoke
absolutely,
on York's behalf. So my
absolutely.
point that I'm making is that their motivation or their inspiration to join the community was not always necessarily as a result of York or his influence or his
But it
his
was his.
charisma.
But it was
Yeah.
his
Rather, it
charisma
was
being passed
how
on
those
to other
individuals
people
perpetuated this idea of York.
from him,
Right.
from
So
the
I
source.
wanna agree. I wanna agree with well, I think that was Sister Ruby that was actually speaking. And I'm
Yes,
gonna give you an example, King, on how he doesn't have to necessarily speak to you directly to have an influence, right? So let's say, for instance, um, these people act like missionaries in the community. And in order to act like a missionary in the community, you got to sell people on a belief. That belief had to be conjured up by someone who was plotting from the beginning to push the agenda. Now, the agenda was to get you out of everything else and into what the organization was focused on. Right now, remember, you guys have the experience in this. But I'm saying, from the outside looking in, and based on what other people have testified to, uh, their experiences were with this particular organization. Most of the people we've talked to, other children of Dr. Yorks, who have the same gripes as many people come in on the panel and have, And based on his presence, meaning that those missionaries that were doing the actual work would go out there and say, look, read this book. Like Sister Ruby kept saying, read this book, read this book. They pass these books out. Then guess what happens? He's got a lecture. He's got the alien theme music going. He's telling you all of this. He's romanticizing pseudoisms, and he's conjuring them up as his, and I'm making quote, his holy words. And he's selling these people. I've listened to I listened to 10 minutes of him, and then it got so crazy to me that I was like, I can't do this. So I was
That
listening to
sense.
him, and he was talking, and he was, talking about how he was the Jesus, how he was this, that, and the third, and he was going on and on and on and on. And I'm like, this is how you rope people in. You send the missionary out. The missionary introduces York to you. They give you this book. Now you're reading these things. Now you're saying, you're like, oh, this is what Christianity stole all of this stuff from. Then you start feeling like you didn't left Christianity for a reason, because this is what you originally was supposed to have. So now you double indoctrinated. And then on top of that, they put him in front of you, and you hear one of his lectures, and he is talking about all these things that got you like all in love with him. So I think Danny's in the chat right now talking about Brooklyn Magic. So when that happens, and when that happens, to Ruby's point and to Anna's point, you're locked in, bro. And I understand it. And the best way to get anyone locked into a cult is to persuade, influence, and misguide the woman,
Yeah,
because she
Exactly.
is going to teach the babies.
that's
and
it.
that and that is what he seems to be, what he's not seen, what he perfected in his lifetime, was the fact that he knew that he needed to manipulate the women, and the best way for him to do that was to go head first at what he could play on those women, and then start separating them, start having these I think Ruby said it best, and I think Anna said it best. Women,
Mhm.
the other women couldn't talk to the other women, so now he has he has set everybody apart in secrecy. So now you can't even elaborate on anything. I think Anna said that she got in trouble a couple of times, I believe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and all these things start happening. So it's all coming together based on your experiences that I'm
But not
hearing.
only was he able to control and manipulate the women, he was able to control and manipulate the men too. And that's why I'm like, people don't understand, because it
Right.
Yeah,
wasn't only us, that little bit on the land, that was being controlled and manipulated. He had, if you saw his followers, it was a bunch of followers, in different states, in different countries.
Yeah.
So it's like he was able to control and manipulate and influence a lot of people. And that's what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah.
it's like, also, when you understand how a person that is a cult leader and the control that he has over the people in the cult, it's like it's so much deeper than you saying, oh, this person should have did that and they should have left, or they should have did that. It's not that easy.
yeah,
It's so easy
it's
for you
hard to
to
do
say
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yes, it's
Okay.
so much
it's like a
harder.
relationship. It's
Was
hard to break
Yes,
up
like
with
a
somebody
toxic
you've been with for
relationship
10
or
years.
abusive
Right.
was
relationship.
the
It's so much
ultimate
easier to say they should have did this and they should have did that, and
Can I say something
but
real
it's
quick?
like it's not
was
that
the
easy.
was the
Can I
Go
say
ahead.
something real
ultimate
quick?
was the
Can I say?
ultimate oh go ahead.
I just want to say the one thing real quick. I hear all of y'all loud and clear, and I agree with you. When I mentioned the whole accountability thing, it's not. I'm not coming at it from a perspective of why didn't you leave. When I say accountability, I'm talking about the
I know
parents that
you're
are out
talking
here.
about the parents.
But here's what I'm saying. I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about back then. I can't do anything about back then. I'm talking about parents now. Let's take accountability for what happened and for the decision they made, and say, you know what? We made a
Right.
mistake.
Right.
Let's have a conversation now. Let's start telling the truth about what really happened. I'm not talking about what they should have, could have, would have done. I'm
Yeah,
talking
Right.
about what they need to do now. So I
Right.
get what you're saying, and don't get me wrong, I'm not disagreeing with you all. But I think what I was saying was taken out of context. I'm not referring to what they should have. I understand they were brainwashed. I get it. I saw it. I know it. I lived it. But I'm saying now, for those individuals who realize that they were brainwashed, who've come to their senses, let's speak up.
They should
Let's
be
get
out there
out here
talking about
and
it
let's
now.
talk about it.
Right.
And I mean, I
That's
do
what I'm
agree.
saying.
There should
Yeah.
have been accountability made on the land and in Bushwick and Jesse Abbott when that stuff was going on too. An
Yeah.
adult should have spoken up then, as well. And in
Right.
that way, it wouldn't have been continuing generations from the Ansar community to Jesse Abbott
Right.
to Tamaray. It shouldn't have continued for like 3 generations later from the 80s all the way
Right.
to the 90s.
We're
There's
talking
no
about
reason why it should have
We're
been
talking
What
about a
was
continuing that
20-year
long.
span.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the ultimate? Well, I could believe that it lasts that long because you could look at other religions and see how that works. That's an easy one. But what was the ultimate belief? What was the ultimate belief in reference to buying into York the charismatic? Because I hear
I,
some people say he had, because he was the movement and he acted on it, and when I listened to a lot of, I guess, so to speak, quote unquote, conscious perspective, it's getting into a place where you can create a community where your people can live and be free of, I guess, the wolves on the outside, right? And so what was it? What was the ultimate belief or the ultimate destiny of the land? Tamari?
Tamaray.
Because it was a beautiful place and looks like it was created for something.
Yeah, it
And
was on
then what was
Shadydale
the
Road.
ultimate? Yeah, what was the
let,
ultimate
let me
belief?
answer the
Because I believe that
let me answer
belief.
the question for you.
What, can you let me finish the comment? The belief. And the reason I said it is because from the belief aspect of it, like I said, we can see in other religions on how that works. I mean, you have people, something as small as some of the little different Christian sects or any other sect, and you can look at them and be like, wow, why would you stay over there? But anyways, they stay, right? So from the belief aspect, I can see it. But what I want to know is, what was the ultimate whole belief deal, and what was the ultimate goal of Dr. York? Because he do have a lot of followers in all different places, and even with him being locked up, these people are die hard. So I know what Christians believe. I know what NOI, Muslims and Hindu and Confucians and all of them. But what I gather from most people is that he spoke on all of them. So what was the ultimate goal? I don't understand.
I mean, I think, to be honest, he's the only one that can answer that, because it was at first we were Muslim, Muslims, and then it went from that to nuwaubian, and then it went from nuwaubian to being cowboys, and then cowboys to believing in extraterrestrials. I'm like, I have no idea what the ultimate goal, what he was trying to do. Like, I have no idea. It was just a bunch of everything mixed in one.
Yeah,
Someone in the chat said the mothership and being of the 144,000.
I don't know. The mothership must have came and left,
Okay.
because I haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet.
that's the okay. That was the hook, because a lot of us that were on the outside, the hook was that here's a sanctuary. You move into the tabernacle of the Most High. You are going to be the ones to be protected, and in the process, you're living prophecy, because based on the book of Revelation, those that are to be, raptured. And part of the rapture would be that there would be a ship that would descend out of the heavens. And he backed that with the book of Revelation chapter 21, I think it is, where it talks about a new heaven and a new earth coming down out of heaven. And those little blue Revelation books were supposed to be illustrations of the text from the Bible, where it gives you some type of implication that there are windows that are made of crystals and fine materials on earth, and then it refers to it as a crystal city. So he set as the hook when people would come to class is that you need to move into the tabernacle of the Most High, because this is going to be your only sanctuary, and it's going to be the children who are going to be our salvation, because they're going to be taken up into the ship for 1,000 years or one day, and then come back, and they will be the ones who are going to be our saviors. And so by doing so, he being the one, Michael, Melchizedek, or any other name supposed to be the big man up at the top, who is supposed to the one to bring in the real Messiah, because his whole game was that he was supposed to be the
God.
forerunner for the
The
real Messiah.
Antichrist.
You see, he was supposed to be the one to set it up so that when the Messiah comes, or Jesus, whoever is supposed to come, his job is to gather the 144,000, and those children are supposed to be separated.
Yeah, that sounds very much like the Jamaican cult, because that's the same vision the so-called pastor had, that they get food ready and the man to pour this food so that they can go on the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark. And yeah, it sounds very similar to the Jamaican cult in a lot of ways. So if you don't know about the Jamaican cult, please go and look back in the videos. You will see information on it. Yeah, it's very damning. It's very interesting how they use certain biblical stories, biblical rights, so they can get the people to think in their way, so that they can do certain things, i.e., keep food, don't feed people, all sorts of craziness. Like,
from society and not be partakers of the delicacies of the harlot, which is again the biblical quote that he used. You see,
I don't know anything about that, but
yeah,
he
no,
must have been
that was
the Antichrist
where
and
we were
the
coming
devil,
from.
because I
That
don't
was
know.
Ansar doctrine, and that was nuwaubian doctrine. Now later
Right.
on, he altered it by saying that all of y'all, meaning who's inside, are going to be part of the 144,000, because time showed that prophecy couldn't possibly have worked.
Right.
I don't know. I think everything that he was talking about was just a bunch of lies, just to
Agreed.
make money
Agreed.
off of the followers that he had. Because as you can see, the spaceship didn't come.
Nope.
I don't know who the 44,000 was supposed to be. Everything about him was a lie.
True.
Down to his ancestry, him being related to the Al Mahdi when he was born in New Jersey. He's never had never completed high school, only have a GD. Like, everything he told was a lie. So it's like, it's hard to believe anything that he's saying, because everything that he said was a lie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting, because with all the lies that were taught, a lot of the people who may have when we were taught in to teach this stuff, and to take the Bible, the Quran, and show the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the historical inaccuracies. So he being the one who's supposed to be behind all of this, and we being his soldiers, anything he says based on something you can find, say, well, that quote is there, so that must be true. You then to say, well, everything he says is true. And
Right.
that was when he was able to start bringing in his teaching, or his doctrine. Remember, I don't know if you remember him saying this, but this is what we were always told. And he even said it in one of the Brooklyn classes. I came giving you what you think you want, so you'll learn to think on the level of what I really have to give.
Right. I remember that.
That's what he said. And now we see, this is what you wanted to get rid of all that, and then bring in your own doctrine, your ideology. And part of that was taking advantage of people, not only monetarily, but also physically. And this brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you, Anna, is you were there when the raid took place. And there's a lot of different stories of when
Yes,
people,
I was.
So when they came in and they were saying they were guns blazing, what was the situation that took place from what you witnessed, and how it came to be, and what was the reaction, and just give us an idea of what it was like. Put us there.
I mean, at the time when the FBI had came in, I didn't know they were coming, because I didn't hear anything, and I was inside the building, and it was me, and it was a bunch of noise going on, and I just remember me and her was running, through the building. I was like, okay, what is going on? And then I remember looking through a peephole, must have been outside the window or something, and I saw FBI agents surrounding the building, and through every crack you could look through, they had their guns, their rifle pointed at the building, and I was like, I remember saying to the girl, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. And then I was like, I didn't know why they were there, what was going on. And they started telling us like, come outside the building, because they jumped inside the buildings and they had tear gas and whatever else. And we slowly started coming out. We had to put our hands up, and they, patted us down, made sure we didn't have any weapons or anything. And we had to put our hands on our head, and we started like walking by one. And then they told us to go in the temple, because they were questioning the children there, and then they were questioning like different people. And they said, who wanted to leave and who wanted to stay. And I remember I had my hand up. I was like, I'm ready to go. Get me out of here. So I was on the side, like ready to go. But it was traumatic, because a lot of the children were younger too, and like some of them had like guns, being held to their heads, and like they were in or in the closet, because nobody knew what was going on. We didn't know that they were coming, because we didn't hear anything, and we just saw like a bunch of them, just coming in there and stuff. And it was like a army tanker truck I remember seeing, and it like men jumping out of there, and helicopters. I mean, I was like, okay, what is going on? But and I remember asking somebody like, oh, can we call the police? And it was like, they are the police. I was like, and my first thought was like, oh, I guess we're just gonna die. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, after they questioned everybody and they asked who wanted to leave and who wanted to stay, you were free to leave off the land if you wanted to, and some people could stay if they chose to, and some people did choose to stay, and some people chose to go, and that was that.
I see. Okay. Interesting. That was a question, because it's always been this, question about, okay, one group said, what was it like? How did it go down? And I think that's good. You able to explain that.
And defects came up there around that time.
That was what I was
4 years
later,
yeah. 4 or 5 years later, to check on the kids, and probably other kids that were allowed to continue being abused, because they came 4 or 5 years later, to raid, the land or whatever else. But they did come that time to question the kids, but I never seen them any time before then. On the land or at all.
Wow. I can't even imagine that. That had to be.
Yeah, it was traumatic.
So, and with all of that going on, and from what you had already known, I mean, did you know what they were there for?
No, I didn't know anything. But I remember them saying in the temple that, I'm trying to think, did they ever tell us that he got arrested? I don't know. They might have announced it, I'm not sure. But like nobody really knew like what they came there for.
So in the course of that,
I don't mean to break your bill, but I do want to let you know that Brother Ampu's on the panel.
Okay, I see you. I'm not going to be on much longer anyway, and I just want to hit this last part. When you were when they were questioning individuals, or even this, York. I want to say this because there's some people who say that when they got arrested, or I'm sorry, when they were taken into custody, everybody said nothing happened, as if they're supposed to say yes, it happened. My question to you is, was York telling or instructing those people that he was molesting that if they were to go to the doctor or if they were taken, not to say what was going on?
I mean, like a lot of them, they probably were already scared and, brainwashed and whatever else. But I remember it was like probably like, I'm trying to think, I'm not sure how long ago before the raid, but I do remember him saying one time that if you ever get asked by the police or whoever else, if anything ever happened, to tell them that nothing happened. I remember him saying that. And I think, I remember him saying that. And it was Habiba around, and it might have been Kathy from what I'm thinking. But I remember him, you know, mentioning that to me. I don't know if he told the other, you know, victims around him or any of the other, you know, girls to say it too. But I know I do remember hearing him say that.
Okay.
But a lot of them, they were scared themselves, so that's you know
Mm-hmm.
why they didn't say nothing. And eventually, some of them,
But I was
you know,
meaning back.
wind up.
Yeah, like before that had even happened. I mean, sometimes in the past, you know, they just mentioned, you know, don't if you go, because I remember in reading some of the testimony that when certain individuals did get examined, they had mentioned that they can't. He said, don't tell. Just say that was one of your boyfriends that did it.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. You got that.
Yeah.
I think would y'all wanted to say something?
Okay.
Oh, peace to the panel. Peace. Can y'all hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
All right. So peace to the panel. Everyone, I'm coming in late, so I don't want to deter, you know, kind of change up the way the conversation is going or anything. So I'm just gonna kind of fall back and listen in some more, so I could jump in if I wanted to kind of make a point or ask a question.
Oh, you can talk, and we already got like out most of what we was talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I missed a lot of it, so I'm not sure if something I may comment on or ask y'all already, you know, already
Yeah,
dealt with.
so I could tell you where we were at, Saber. We talked about we had a video of the tribute that went through Brooklyn, and then after that it took us to Georgia on the land, and we saw how the land was constructed and how they talked about it, the neighbors around, the farmers in the area, and so forth. We had Brother King, very passionate brother, you know, speak about his experiences on with York and the whole situations and being raised in it, mother, father, so on and so forth. You know, and then we had Sister Anna who was just speaking. She was speaking about her experience. Chuck was asking the questions about how you know, things were around the land at the time that.
Now we're gonna go to one of the victims talking again. Okay, I'm going to show Abigail. Hold up.
Malachi. I want to start off with how it started, where it started, when, and the reason why. I left the community in February of 2001. I moved from Georgia and I went to New York and lived with my family. In about March of 2001, I was contacted by Jacob. Jacob is the son of Malachi York. He's also an ex-member. Jacob contacted me, and our conversation was basically about the good times that we had in the community, what we went through, how we grew up, just making up for old times. 2 months after that, Jacob called me. This was in May. Jacob called me about a trip to Florida. A trip where a lot of some of the girls and boys that were going down, ex-members that were going to go down to Florida just to hang out, to have fun, or whatever. I agreed to go on the trip. I told Jacob that I'll come on the trip. I left from New York, went to Georgia. We all met up at Jacob's house. It was me, Jacob, Nicole Lopez, Noor Rashid, East, Esther, probably some other girls and boys that I don't remember. Before we actually went down to Florida, I had a conversation with Jacob outside of his house, and Jacob brought up some feelings that he had about his father. Jacob was really upset with his father. He stated that he hated his father, that he felt that his father doesn't need to be alive, that he shouldn't even be given life. He felt that his father needs to just rot in jail. Jacob wanted all of us meaning me, Nicole, Karima, he was talking to a couple of people, different people that left the community. He wanted us to bring a case against his father. Jacob told me that some of the girls and boys that left the community had went to the government about different things that was going on in the community, meaning child molestation. Before I left the community, I was the main person in charge of the finances, as well as in charge of anything that went on with the community, the living, eating, anything, the financial, anything that happened regarding any of the members in the community. I dealt with that, so I was basically in charge. Jacob told me that the FBI knew who I was, and that they were told about certain things that I've done in the community, and some of those things I can be incriminated for. Jacob told me that if I don't go to the FBI first, then they would come after me, they would incarcerate me, they would take my children away from me, because there are things that they were told about me that could incriminate me. When Jacob first talked to me about that, I was not interested in bringing out any charges against his father. I didn't see any reason. I didn't believe that anything was going on. I didn't believe that anything was wrong. We wasn't doing any criminal acts. Jacob brought up the fact that I had a son by his father at 17 years old. I told Jacob that my son with his father was never, it never came about because I was forced to have sex with his father. Yes, I was 17 years old, and yes, I did agree to having a child with his father at that age. I understood my age, I understood his age. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I consented to it. So I told Jacob that that's the way that I felt. I didn't feel that anything wrong happened, that we both agreed to it. I felt that I was an adult, it was my decision, and I went with it. But Jacob proceeded to say that there were some things that some of the other members, some of the other ex-members had went to the government with, and that I should really, really talk to them and see what's up and see how I can clear my name so that I'm not prosecuted for any of those things. We all went to Florida after that conversation, and during our trip to Florida we had several conversations in the car with Jacob. It was some other boys that were there, and Jacob started talking about going on the land and taking some of the kids, just kidnapping some of the children off the land. He was talking about my sister. My sister was still there. My younger sister Isla was still there, and he wanted us to just go up there and just take her and take some of the other little girls and boys off the land, because he didn't feel that they should be living on the land with his father. But we had all agreed that that was not going to happen. You know, none of us was interested in going up on the land and kidnapping anybody.
That just finished so abruptly, you know. So we don't even know. Like, I mean, from what I heard, Jacob's heart was in the right place. He was literally trying to help victims of what was going on with the father, all sorts of things. You know, from what I've been told, I can't look at him in a bad way, really. But anyway, we're gonna go to a victim that was. Let me see, I could find it.
for me, it felt like it was something that I had to do. Because one, like I told you, both of my sisters went through the same thing I went through. And both of my older sisters.
Do you mind sharing? I don't know.
Okay, well, both of my sisters have been molested.
By who?
By Malachi York. By Pops, Barbara, you know, Esau, Mom Esau, whatever. You know, he has sex with them. And
at what ages?
At what ages? I mean, you know, if you want to get the accurate number, you can ask them.
Around what age? You know, I
mean,
trying
13,
to be
14, 7, 8. You know, and I will only speak for myself as far as the personal thing that I've been through.
Of course, you.
And as far as if, you know, and I don't want to get graphic. One, you know, okay, I'm a dude. I'm not gonna be walking around saying that I've been molested, this and that happened. As a man, you don't want to be going around saying that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So when in my situation or the way I grew up, I was ready to move on. I left in 2001. I was ready to just live my life, move on, whatever. You know what I'm saying? The people started doing investigations and stuff. The FBI started doing investigations, started trying to get statements from people. Both my sisters went ahead and gave their statements.
Yeah.
I still had nothing to do with it, no statement, no nothing. When I realized, okay, they're about to go to court, you know, and I went through the same thing that they went through. Like, I'm my mother's only son, you know what I'm saying? So I'm the man of the family. You know what I'm saying? My sisters were gonna stand up for themselves, and I'm, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, well, and then that's when I gave my statement, and that's when I decided that, you know, that I was gonna go ahead and do it. Nobody wants to see they family go get locked away. So I really understand how hard it is for people that's deeply involved in it also. And people gotta understand, I was born and raised in it too. So I understand from inside out also what it feels like not to have this person around still giving leadership. You know, so it's not no stranger, no random person that's saying, oh, this happened. I mean, this stuff, like, I was 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? I was upstate New York after Brooklyn. You know, I was upstate New York when he first, you know, touched me or whatever, you know. And so from 7 to 14, 7 years that I went through this, you know what I'm saying? And that's my story.
Would you say there's been over 20 children molested by Dr. York?
I would say so. I mean, I would say that it was, you know, if I could confirm people that I could strongly confirm, it'll be about 15 or 20 people.
Obviously, if over 15 to 20 children were being molested, we have to now say, how come the adults wasn't saying nothing? Shouldn't they be locked up with Dr. York too? How come they're free to testify about it?
You understand the adults were separated from their children. You know, so you had the girls in one house, the boys in one house, the women in one place, the brothers in one place. You know, everybody was separated. So it wasn't no house with a family, and then you could recognize when your child is gone.
You mean to tell the world that none of these children had enough sense in their mind to go tell their parent that this isn't right? I've been touched sexually, I've been sexually abused. Not one child out of all these children. It could have stopped so long ago if just one child or just one adult. What caused all of this to come out? First, you hear nothing from nobody.
Yeah.
You hear nothing from nobody. Then you hear something from everybody, all at the same time.
They might not have been the medium to talk to anybody about the situation.
Not even their parents.
I mean, that's why, of course. I could have told my mother.
You chose not to.
It's not that I chose not to. To really explain it would really take a lot. But I mean, you're not really yourself when you're not, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got no esteem. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got no, you know what I'm saying? You can't even face, like, my mother had to, when she found out from my sister and she came to me and asked me about it, and I still really couldn't even tell her. I had to say, well, I had sex with a girl and he was there. And that was my way of telling her that, yeah, it happened. You know what I'm saying? But that's what the initial conversation. And this is like 2 weeks before we left. It was something I was under. I couldn't tell my mom. I didn't tell nobody. It was something that held me to not say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because I looked up to him as my dad, because I looked up to him as the person that he was. I thought he was a God figure. I thought he, you know, and all those reasons, like, you know, I'm trying to, like, see why is this going on? What's the significance? I'm young. I don't even know what really into sex, and I don't.
Why do you think he's locked up for 135 years, underground 60 feet, in a super max penitentiary with no one with a case likened to his own, amongst cannibals? Not because what you think he should be locked up for, why you think he's locked up.
Well, I mean, to answer your question in the way that I think you're asking it, you know what I'm saying? Because one, you have a black leader that was getting black people together and was building a sovereign nation.
Tell me if this is something you believe. That's not what I want to hear. What do you personally believe? Dealing with the facts of the matter, not denying you of your experience, but based on what we all know, what is necessary to lock a person up when you accuse them of these type of things.
What I know from history is that whenever you have a black leader that's uplifting the people, that's doing something for the community, that's bringing people together, and that's building people and elevating people, then they get taken down. You know what I'm saying? And he wouldn't have been taken down, and he hasn't been taken down until they found something to take him down with. If he threw everything away by molesting kids, did he really care about everybody else? This is what I have to live with. I have to live with how do I come across the people that's in the knowledge and even vibe with them and talk to them on a regular level and people looking at me one way.
Nah, that's all good. You can always come to a class of ours.
That's cool, but you know what I'm saying. But it is. But see, the thing is that
don't make you a bad
at the end of the day, people's always gonna have his word over anybody else's word because that's all they know.
No, at the end of the day, he's locked up, so obviously they took y'all word over everyone else's. It doesn't matter, like I told you, if we say he's innocent, when he's still locked up in prison. Y'all word accounted for everything.
What I can't go back. You know what I'm saying? I can only face what's in front of me. And everything that's in front of me, I see people that's being misled. I see people that's under the impression, and even though...
Being misled by what? Because people are saying
Doc
is being railroaded? That people are saying none of this has to do with the case as far as the government is concerned? The government don't give a damn about the accusations? Are you hearing what I'm saying?
You got people saying that kids haven't been molested. I can't see what you're seeing. I can't see I know what happened to me. I know what he did. I know what kind of person he is. You know what I'm saying? So
what kind of person he is? That's the question I want to ask you. What kind of person is Dr.
I mean, you get what you see. You get what you see.
Tell me, who is he to you?
What people didn't see is also the
I asked about other people. I want to know about you personally. I want to get into your mind. I want to know, what is he to you? Who is he to you?
Who he is to me right now? He's somebody that did a lot of things great, but had his flaws, and it didn't correct those.
In that man's throat. You hear the dip in his throat? Polites was very wrong for this because he really defended Dr. York. He defended him. And the way he came at this young man, because I've seen a numbers of people play this video, you can hear the dip in his throat. If I could lick that man for you, I would, believe it, because he was a victim. He's one of the victims. And you come at him like this. Wow.
Flaws. And he had years and years and years to correct those flaws. He didn't correct those flaws. Now I came back and now he's incarcerated. Should he be in there? Should he be out? Someone like him shouldn't be incarcerated if they uplifted the community and doing what he did. But if you're gonna do that and on top of that still do the wrong thing for years and years and years, then you definitely shouldn't be out on the streets. That's if I was the devil, the perfect devil is the one who's gonna be a pastor, a preacher, or the one doing the right thing, and actually the one doing the wrong thing and send you to hell. That's the perfect devil right there. If I was a devil right now, I'd be telling you to do the right thing. I'd be telling you to live your life this way, and I'll be sending you right to hell. The devil knows the gospel as well as any pastor or preacher. So if the devil is gonna do his job, what better way to do it than to have everybody lifting themselves or doing the right thing, and in actuality, it's like they're going up, but they're going this way. It's not just up. It's like they're going up and they're going astray. You know what I'm saying? That's the only really way that the devil could do his job is to deceive people into thinking that he's actually God, to deceive people into thinking that he's actually Christ. That's why they say you will have false prophets and false messiahs. I would respect a wolf. If I was a sheep, I would respect a wolf that approached me and tried to hunt me down than a wolf that came in sheep clothing.
My whole argument in this whole situation is, should people be locked up based on what people believe? I got the right to be angry. You know why? Because the Lord promises me something different. The Lord promises me that we will lock people up beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's what the Lord promises me.
Yeah. But in this case, it was up to 12 people to have that reasonable doubt or not. And those 12 people make the decision.
It's not. So what's the point?
If you want to fight for freedom, fight for it for another reason. Don't fight for it because he's innocent of a molesting kid.
Let's say he molested 1,000 children. Factually.
Okay.
Genetic evidence and everything. Things that we don't deny. Scientifically, we say, wow, okay, true. If someone was to ask me, would you still worship him as your Most High, acknowledge him as your Most High God? I would have to. I don't identify with everything he does there, much like I believe most Christians don't identify with everything their God does, because it says their God is a jealous God. And some Christians would tell you it's not right to be jealous. And some would tell you that, it shouldn't be vengeful, but in the Bible tells you the Most High is a vengeful God. And it tells you shouldn't hate, but it tells you that God loved Jacob and he hated Esau. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's the difference between being a proud nuwaubian and saying that he's innocent. Okay, that's two different people. I could be a proud nuwaubian because I was born in Nuwaubu, but it's two different kinds of people.
Are you got people? Nuwaubian, if that's the case,
I can be, but how can I be a proud nuwaubian if the Nuwaubians are saying that he's innocent and I'm saying that this happened to me?
Yeah,
so now it is. You see how we sitting down talking? That's. But see, the thing is that now it's
That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is when you know what they say. birds that flock together, birds that stay together flock together, something like that. Now, polite come from Dr. York's teaching as well, and he was also got caught for doing whatever he was doing as well. Um, and I'm kind of glad that Chuck Morgan did a video like that, because you can hear the sick in it, that he said he still see him as his God, as his father, as his whatever, right? And the man's got 135 years for all what he's done, plus money laundering and extra. Now, I am going to do another video. Just thought I throw in the rest of the children, because people don't know who the children are. They hear their voices and they don't know who they are. Now, Abigail was one. I think his name is Tyreek. He was another one. There's so many of them, right? There's, I think, oh, hold on a minute. It's a good thing I said I was going to finish at nearing 3 minute mark, because there's still more to offload on this situation. Now, this is one of the biggest cults where children was assaulted, and all sorts of stuff happened to them. As you can hear from the ones who's talking, the back and forwards, like you can hear their pain is a very deep pain, very deep. There is some sick people out there who create cults, and they what starts off as something small, nothing really big, and then it turns into something big. Now, the reason why I started doing cults as well was due to Real Talk I think she was doing a body language on Nature Boy or something. I can't remember. She really sparked it, to be honest, because the same thing, what is everything explained here, he's doing the exact same thing. The exact same thing. It's a con game going on. But the sad fact about it, right? He said he would wife his daughter at one time in his life. He did say that. Then he said, "Oh no, I was just joking. I just wanted controversy." Now you said it. That was on your heart. And as you can hear from York's victims, each and every one of them, it always starts off with little something, and then it turns into something else. And you know, he separate. Right now, the reason why I'm using Nature Boy, because Nature Boy is the now. What's going on now? Now he separated his members, the men, from the women. He controls a great deal of the men and the women, separating them. He says now, before, the only child that was allowed there was his own child. Okay. Now his children's they come in and out with the women, etc. He's changed doctrines. And he has charges himself, mind you. He has charges himself on a lot of things. And it seems like he does actually go through and he makes up stuff as he goes along. And, so by them saying that, how because of the Islam stuff, using certain Islam scriptures for what he was doing, this is the same thing what's going on with the Babylon nation right now. This is the same thing. And it's important that we keep all this in mind. We keep all of this in mind. Like, go back, watch the videos, and each one you can. I bet you can. There's a big checklist of stuff you can tick off and say, yeah, that's that Nature Boy. That is Nature Boy right there. That is him right there in a nutshell. Okay. Now I'm not gonna stay on long because I reached the 3 minute mark, and my daughter's gonna come in and and I don't want her to be coming in and out when I'm talking and stuff, and because there's a lot to read as well. I haven't even read half of the stuff that I pulled up because, and as you can see, you can hear her, she's up and down. So thank you for those who came through, the ones who stayed and listened to the people talking, because it's vital that you listen. Hopefully in the algorithm you'll see the video where they were talking, and I did try to show little bits of what was shown on the land, etc. I will do a third one, and that'll be the last one, on the nuwaubians, where I can look at more of the articles and stuff. So I am going to come off now. So thank you for passing through. Thank you, Christine. And I did mention your names because, as you can hear, it's busy at the back here right now. So thank you for passing through. But I'm going to do the third part on York and Tamaray. Might have to do some transcripts, whatever comes up. We're just going to put it out there right now. And and I'm going to upload and put it onto the other channel as well. So it's going to be circulated a lot, okay, so that people can go and check out who this person is. Go research him, go look him up in every way, every single way. Listen to all the people that's covering him, the commentary that was covered. Chuck Morgan is a very good one to check out. Go check him out, okay? So with that said, I'm going to come off. Have a good day, good afternoon. And please send out good vibes for the children who's going through stuff right at this present moment. The ones who can't get out of certain spaces, still in cults as well, because cults are still going on now. There's cults still going on right now. Even as I'm speaking, there's cults going on now. And it's not just Nature Boy, right? He's one of the ones who projects on social media. But what about the ones who don't? Anyways, with that said, I'm going to come off. Have a good day. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming through, everybody. Thank you. Okay? All right. Later. Bye.